The waiter's voice cut through the candlelit silence like a blade. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Your card has been declined." Nora Blake felt the blood drain from her face as every diner in the restaurant seemed to turn and stare. Across from her, the first man she'd allowed herself to hope for in 3 years watched her fumble through her purse with trembling hands, counting crumpled bills that would never be enough. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to die. But what happened next would change everything she believed about love, about worth, and about the beautiful wreckage two broken people can build together. If you want to see how one moment of humiliation became the foundation of an extraordinary love story, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The rain started around 6 o'clock, the kind of persistent Pacific Northwest drizzle that turned Portland's streets into mirrors reflecting neon signs and headlights. Nora Blake stood at her apartment window, watching the droplets trace crooked paths down the glass, and tried to remember how to breathe. In 45 minutes, she would be sitting across from Ethan Reed at Bella Notte, the Italian restaurant on Morrison Street that she'd walked past 100 times but never entered. In 45 minutes, she would have to pretend she belonged there, among the white tablecloths and the wine lists and the people who didn't check their bank accounts 3 times a day. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Been thinking about this all week." Nora read the message twice, 3 times, letting the warmth of it spread through her chest before the familiar anxiety crept back in. 2 weeks of texting, 2 weeks of conversations that stretched past midnight, of voice messages that made her laugh until her sides ached, of a connection so easy it felt almost suspicious. Ethan Reed was not the kind of man who was supposed to notice her. She'd met him at the bakery where she worked, Powell's Sweet Spot on Hawthorne. He'd come in looking for a birthday cake for his daughters, twin girls turning 6, and Nora had spent 20 minutes helping him choose between chocolate buttercream and strawberry vanilla, while his eyes crinkled at the corners and his laugh filled the small shop like music. He was handsome in an understated way. Brown hair that always looked slightly tousled, warm hazel eyes behind glasses that kept slipping down his nose, broad shoulders that curved inward as if he was trying to take up less space. When he'd asked for her number, Nora had been so shocked she'd written it wrong the first time. She wasn't used to being asked. 32 years old, and she'd spent the last 5 building walls so high she'd forgotten there was a world on the other side. Her 20s had been a catalog of disasters, a college degree she couldn't afford that led to a job she hated, a relationship with a man who systematically dismantled her self-worth before walking out with her savings and her trust, a bankruptcy that still showed up on credit checks like a scarlet letter. Now she decorated cakes for minimum wage plus tips, lived in a studio apartment with temperamental heating, and counted her worth in carefully rationed dollars. But Ethan didn't know any of that. To him, she was simply Nora, the girl with the flour-dusted apron and the quick wit, the one who'd made him laugh so hard he'd nearly dropped the cake. The one who texted him pictures of lopsided pastries at 6 a.m. and listened to his stories about his daughters with genuine interest. The one who felt for the first time in years like maybe she deserved something good. She couldn't afford this date. She knew that. The restaurant was at least $50 a plate, and her bank account held exactly $63 until next Friday. But Ethan had been so excited when he suggested it, and she'd been so desperate to maintain the illusion that she'd agreed before her brain could catch up to her mouth. Now, standing in front of her closet, Nora faced the physical evidence of her deception. She owned exactly one nice dress, a black wrap dress she'd bought at Goodwill 2 years ago for a job interview that went nowhere. The fabric was starting to pill at the waist, and there was a small tear near the hem that she'd repaired with black thread in lighting that clearly hadn't been good enough, because now the stitching showed. But it was all she had. Nora pulled the dress on, studied herself in the bathroom mirror, and wondered when she'd become so skilled at pretending. Her phone buzzed again. Leaving now. Table's at 7:30. See you soon, beautiful. Beautiful. The word wrapped around her heart like a vice. When was the last time anyone had called her beautiful? When was the last time she'd believed it? She grabbed her purse, a knockoff Kate Spade that had seen better days, and the carefully folded bills she'd been saving for emergencies. 2 20s and a handful of smaller bills. $63 total. It would have to be enough. What? Bella Notte was everything Nora had feared and more. The entrance alone made her feel underdressed. A mahogany door flanked by potted olive trees, warm light spilling through windows that showcased couples in cocktail attire, sipping wine that probably cost more than her grocery budget for the week. She hesitated on the sidewalk, the rain dampening her carefully straightened hair, and seriously considered running. She could text Ethan, tell him she was sick, tell him something came up, tell him anything but the truth, which was that she didn't belong in places like this, and she never would. But then the door opened, and there he was. Ethan Reed, in a blue button-down that brought out the warm undertones in his eyes, his hair damp from the rain and his smile so genuine it made her chest ache. He held the door open with one hand and reached for her with the other. "You're here," he said, and the relief in his voice was palpable. "I was worried you'd change your mind." "Why would I change my mind?" "Because I'm terrible at this." He laughed, the nervous sound of a man who'd forgotten how to date. "It's been a while since I've done the whole first date thing. I've probably been overthinking every message I've sent you for the past 2 weeks." Nora felt something loosen in her chest. "For what it's worth, I've been doing the same thing." "Yeah?" His smile widened. "Good. Then we can be awkward together." He led her inside, his hand warm against the small of her back, and Nora tried to focus on him instead of the restaurant, the white tablecloths, the crystal stemware. The prices on the menu that she knew without looking would make her stomach drop. Their table was in a corner, intimate and candlelit, and Ethan pulled out her chair like this was the most natural thing in the world. "You look amazing," he said, settling across from her. "That dress is beautiful." "It's old." The words came out before she could stop them, that reflexive need to deflect compliments, to undersell herself before anyone else could. "I mean, thank you. You look nice too." Ethan laughed. "You're supposed to just accept the compliment, you know." "I'm working on it." "That's fair. I'm working on a lot of things too." The waiter appeared with menus and a wine list, and Nora felt her palms start to sweat. She opened the menu, and her fears were confirmed. The cheapest entree was $32. The pasta dishes, which she'd been planning to order because pasta was always safe, started at $28. She could order a salad. No, a salad at a place like this would still be $18. She could say she wasn't hungry, but Ethan was already studying the menu with obvious pleasure, and she didn't want to make things awkward. "What looks good to you?" he asked. "I'm not sure yet." Nora kept her voice light. "What about you?" "The chicken parmesan, definitely. It's their specialty, at least according to the 12 Yelp reviews I read before picking this place." He grinned, self-deprecating. "I may have done research." "You researched the restaurant?" "I wanted it to be nice." His voice softened. "You deserve nice, Nora." Something cracked open in her chest, something raw and tender that she'd been protecting for so long. Nobody had ever said she deserved nice. Nobody had ever planned things specifically because they wanted to make her happy. "Thank you," she managed. "That's really sweet." The waiter returned, and Nora ordered the cheapest entree she could find without it being obvious. A mushroom risotto for $26. No appetizer, no wine, just water. Ethan ordered the chicken parmesan and a glass of red wine, then paused. "Would you like a glass? The Chianti is supposed to be excellent here." "No, thank you. I'm good with water." "You sure?" "Positive." She smiled, hoping it didn't look as strained as it felt. "I'm more of a water person." The lie tasted sour in her mouth, but Ethan nodded and handed the menus back to the waiter. And then somehow the anxiety began to fade, because Ethan Reed was exactly who he'd seemed to be in those 2 weeks of messages. Warm, funny, self-deprecating in a way that felt genuine rather than practiced. He told her about his daughters, Lily, the bookworm who stayed up past her bedtime with a flashlight, and Brooke, the chaos agent who'd recently decided she wanted to be a veterinarian for dinosaurs. He talked about his startup, a software company that helped small businesses manage their inventory, and how he'd built it from nothing after leaving a corporate job that was slowly killing his soul. And he asked about her. Really asked, not the surface questions people usually offered on first dates, but questions that required actual thought. "What made you want to work at a bakery? Like, specifically that one?" Nora hesitated. The truth was complicated. The truth involved bankruptcy and desperation, and a job market that didn't care about her marketing degree when she had a financial history that screamed liability. "I've always loved baking," she said instead. "When I was a kid, my grandmother taught me how to make pie crust from scratch. She said the secret was cold butter and warm hands." Nora smiled at the memory. "After she passed, I kind of stopped. Life got busy, you know. But when I saw the job posting, it felt like a sign. Like maybe I was supposed to come back to it." "That's beautiful." Ethan's eyes were soft in the candlelight. "Do you bake at home too?" "When I can. My apartment has the world's tiniest kitchen, though. Barely room for me and a mixing bowl." "I feel that. Our kitchen is decent sized, but somehow Lily and Brooke have managed to turn every available surface into a craft station. Last week I found glitter in the butter." Nora laughed, a real laugh, the kind that came from somewhere deep. "Glitter in the butter? Don't ask. Honestly, don't ask. The investigation is ongoing." Their food arrived, and Nora was relieved to see that the portions were generous. The risotto was creamy and rich, studded with wild mushrooms and finished with truffle oil that she absolutely did not deserve. "This is incredible," she admitted, momentarily forgetting her financial terror. "Right? The Yelp reviews were not lying." Ethan grinned. "I'm already planning our second date around where to find the best pizza." Our second date. The word sent a thrill through her that immediately curdled into dread. A second date would mean another restaurant she couldn't afford, another night of creative arithmetic, another lie. But she pushed that down. Tonight, she told herself, just focus on tonight. They talked through the meal, about Portland and its quirky neighborhoods, about the movies they loved and the books they'd been meaning to read, about the particular exhaustion of adult life and the small joys that made it bearable. Ethan told her about the nights he stayed up late working after the girls went to bed, trying to build something that would give them a better future. Nora told him about the regular customers at the bakery, the ones whose names she'd learned, whose orders she memorized because it made them smile. For 2 hours, she forgot about the bill. She forgot about her bank account. She forgot about the crumpled bills in her purse that represented her entire financial safety net. And then dessert came and went. They'd shared a tiramisu because Ethan insisted and Nora didn't have the heart to say no, and the waiter returned with the check. "I'll grab this," Nora said quickly, reaching for the small leather folder before Ethan could. He frowned. "What?" "No, I asked you out. This is on me." "But you've already spent so much—" "Nora." His voice was gentle but firm. "Please, let me do this." She should have let him. She knew she should have let him. But some stubborn, terrible part of her needed to prove that she could contribute, that she wasn't the charity case she felt like, that she could walk into a restaurant like this and pay her share like a normal person. "How about we split it?" she offered. "That seems fair." Ethan hesitated, clearly wanting to argue, but something in her expression must have stopped him. "Okay, if that's what you want." The waiter brought the card reader. Ethan inserted his card first, punching in his half of the bill without hesitation. Then he handed the device to Nora. She pulled out her debit card, the one linked to her savings account, the one she tried never to use, and inserted it with steady hands. The machine processed for what felt like an eternity, and then the waiter cleared his throat. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Your card has been declined." The words hit Nora like a physical blow. Declined. Her card had been declined. In front of Ethan, in front of the waiter, in front of every well-dressed person in this beautiful restaurant that she should never have entered. "That's impossible," she heard herself say. "Can you run it again?" The waiter's expression was carefully neutral, but Nora saw the judgment beneath it. She'd served enough people in her life to recognize that particular blend of pity and condescension. "Of course, ma'am." He ran the card again. The machine beeped. His expression didn't change. "I'm afraid it's been declined again." Nora's face burned. Her hand shook as she reached for her purse, pulling out the crumpled bills she'd brought as a backup. 2 20s, a 10, a 5. 3 ones. $58. She'd been wrong about how much she had. She must have spent something earlier in the week and forgotten to track it. $58, and her half of the bill was at least $70. "I have cash," she said, her voice cracking. Let me just—" She spread the bills on the table like evidence of her failure. Ethan's eyes widened, not with disgust, but with something that looked terrifyingly like understanding. "Nora, It's fine. Her voice was too loud, too bright. I just need to. I'll figure it out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The waiter shifted uncomfortably. If you need a moment, actually, Ethan said, his voice calm and steady, just put the whole thing on my card. The entire bill. Ethan, no. Please. He met her eyes, and what she saw there wasn't pity. It was recognition. Let me do this. We can sort out the details later. The waiter processed the full payment with obvious relief and disappeared. Nora sat frozen, her hands still spread over her pathetic pile of bills, her eyes burning with unshed tears. I should go, she whispered. Wait. Ethan's hand covered hers, warm and solid. Please don't run. Please. This is humiliating. Her voice broke. I can't believe I shouldn't have. Nora, look at me. She forced her eyes up. Ethan's expression was impossibly tender. Can I tell you something? He asked quietly. Something I wasn't going to mention on a first date because I was trying to seem like I had my life together? She blinked. What? I'm broke too. The words hung between them, incongruous and impossible. Ethan Reed, with his startup and his nice clothes and his effortless ease in a restaurant like this, was broke? What do you mean? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. My company is failing, Nora. We've lost 3 clients in the past 2 months. I'm behind on rent, I'm drowning in debt from the divorce, and the only reason I could afford tonight is because I sold my watch last week. He held up his bare wrist, a Seiko my dad gave me when I graduated college. I've worn it every day for 10 years. Nora stared at him. You sold your watch for this date? I wanted to impress you. Yes. His smile was crooked, self-deprecating. Stupid, right? Why would you? Because you're the first person who's made me feel like myself in 2 years. His voice roughened. Since my ex left, since everything fell apart, I've been pretending, every day. Pretending I'm fine, pretending I've got it handled, pretending my kids aren't going to notice that I'm failing. And then you came along with your flour-dusted apron and your terrible jokes about croissants, and suddenly I wasn't pretending anymore. I was just me. Nora's tears spilled over. She wiped them away roughly, embarrassed by the public display, but Ethan didn't seem to notice or care. This date was supposed to be perfect, he continued. I was going to be smooth and charming and not at all like a nervous single dad who hasn't done this in years. I was going to order wine without checking the price first. I was going to pay the bill without thinking about how many hours of work it represented. He shook his head. And then your card got declined, and I realized maybe perfect isn't the point. What is the point? Being honest. His hand tightened on hers. I haven't been honest with anyone in a long time. I've been too scared. But sitting here with you, watching you try to count out bills for a dinner you couldn't afford, I saw myself. I saw someone pretending to be okay when they're not, and I didn't want to pretend anymore. The restaurant faded around them. The other diners, the waiters, the ambient music, all of it became white noise as Nora looked at the man across from her and saw, perhaps for the first time, someone who understood. I thought you were perfect, she admitted. When we started texting, I thought you had everything figured out. I'm so far from perfect, it's almost funny. Me too. She wiped her eyes again. I'm not who I pretended to be, Ethan. I'm not the girl with the cute bakery job who happens to like staying home. I'm broke. Actually broke. As in bankruptcy on my record, counting quarters for gas broke. I haven't bought new clothes in 2 years. I eat ramen 3 times a week because it's cheap. I only agreed to this restaurant because I didn't want you to know how poor I was. Why? Because I was scared you'd leave. Her voice cracked again. Everyone leaves when they find out. When they see the real me, the mess, the failure, they always leave. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up, moved around the table, and sat down in the chair beside her instead of across from her. I'm not going to leave, he said softly. You don't know that. You're right. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, or next week, or next year. But I know that sitting here with you, the real you, the you that's scared and broke and beautiful and honest, I don't want to be anywhere else. Nora stared at him. Beautiful? I'm a mess. You're the most beautiful mess I've ever seen. She laughed, the sound wet and broken. That's a terrible line. I know. I told you I was bad at this. They sat there for a long moment, hands intertwined, the remnants of their expensive dinner cooling on the table. The waiter approached once, saw them, and wisely retreated. Can I suggest something? Ethan asked finally. Sure. Let's get out of here. Go somewhere that isn't trying to charge us $18 for a salad. Where? I know a place. He smiled. It's not fancy. It's actually kind of the opposite of fancy, but they have the best coffee in Portland, and they're open until midnight. Nora looked at the table, the empty plates, the crystal glasses, the leather check holder that represented a meal she'd never be able to pay for. Then she looked at Ethan. Okay. The rain had let up by the time they stepped outside, but the street still gleamed wet under the streetlights. Ethan led Nora to a bench just outside the restaurant, a simple wooden bench under an awning, probably meant for people waiting for tables. This is the place? Nora asked, confused. No, this is the place before the place. He gestured for her to sit. I just wanted to pause for a second, before we pretend this was a normal first date. Nora sat. The wood was cold through her thin dress, but she didn't mind. What are we doing? She asked. I don't know. Ethan sat beside her. I think we're figuring it out. The streetlight above them flickered, casting intermittent shadows across his face. Nora studied him, the tired lines around his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the way his hands kept moving like he didn't know what to do with them. Tell me about the startup, she said. What about it? Everything. Tell me the truth about it. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he exhaled, and the words started coming like water through a broken dam. I started it 3 years ago, right after my divorce was finalized. My ex, Rachel, she left when the twins were 3, decided she didn't want to be a mom anymore. Moved to Austin with her new boyfriend, sends cards on birthdays, occasionally FaceTimes for 10 minutes before she has to go. The girls barely remember her. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm past the anger now, mostly. But after she left, I was working this corporate job, software development, good money, soul-crushing hours. I was never home. The girls were in daycare 10 hours a day, and I realized I was trading their childhood for a paycheck that Rachel was going to take half of anyway. He rubbed his hands together, a nervous gesture that Nora was beginning to recognize. So I quit, cashed out my 401k, took out a small business loan, and started Inventory Systems Plus. The idea was simple. Small businesses need better inventory management, but they can't afford the enterprise solutions. I'd build something affordable, something accessible. In 2 years, I'd be profitable. In 5, I'd be selling to a bigger company. What happened? Reality happened. His laugh was bitter. Turns out there are 100 other companies doing the same thing, most of them better funded than me. I've got maybe 50 clients, and I keep losing them to competitors with better marketing budgets. Every month, I'm not sure if I'll make payroll. I've got 2 part-time developers who I can barely afford, and they've started asking questions about their job security that I can't answer. And the debt? From the divorce, mostly. Lawyers aren't cheap. Rachel wanted the house, I wanted the kids, and fighting for custody cost me everything I had, plus the business loan, plus the credit cards I maxed out buying equipment. He shook his head. I'm about $60,000 in debt. I make maybe $4,000 a month after expenses, and my rent alone is half of that. Nora's heart ached for him. How do you manage? Barely. The girls get what they need, always. I'll skip meals before they go without, but it means a lot of late nights, a lot of stress, a lot of lying awake wondering if I made a terrible mistake. Did you? He considered the question seriously. No, I don't think so. I get to pick up my daughters from school every day. I get to make them breakfast in the morning and read them stories at night. I'm there, Nora. I'm present in a way I never was when I worked corporate. Is it worth the financial terror? He smiled faintly. Most days, yeah. It is. That's beautiful. That's survival. There's a difference. He turned to look at her. Your turn. My turn what? Tell me about the bankruptcy. Tell me the truth about where you are. Nora's stomach tightened. She'd never told anyone, not anyone who mattered, not anyone who might judge her for it, but Ethan had just laid himself bare. The least she could do was return the favor. I got a marketing degree from Portland State, she began. Graduated with $40,000 in student loans and absolutely no job prospects. The economy was bad, I didn't have connections, and my degree was worth about as much as the paper it was printed on. She pulled her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. I finally got a job at a marketing firm. Entry-level, terrible pay, but I thought it was my foot in the door. That's where I met Marcus. Marcus? My ex. The name tasted like ash. He was charming, successful, 10 years older than me. He made me feel like I'd finally made it, like all the struggle was worth it because here was this amazing man who chose me. Ethan's jaw tightened, and Nora knew he could see where this was going. We moved in together after 6 months. He paid for everything, rent, bills, dinners. I was grateful. I didn't realize he was keeping score. What do you mean? He was building a ledger. Every time he paid for something, it went into this mental tally of what I owed him. And then, 2 years in, he started cashing in. Her voice hardened. Little things at first. I couldn't go out with friends because he'd paid for our vacation. I couldn't visit my parents because he'd bought me that car. And if I pushed back, he'd remind me how much I cost him, how I'd never survive without him, how no one else would want someone with my debt and my nothing job. Nora, I believed him. The confession burned. That's the worst part. I believed every word. For 4 years, I believed I was exactly as worthless as he said I was. What happened? I finally caught him cheating. With a coworker, of all people. Someone I'd had dinner with. Someone I'd made small talk with at company parties. And when I confronted him, do you know what he said? Ethan shook his head. He said it was my fault, because I wasn't enough, because I'd stopped being worth the investment. Nora laughed, but there was no humor in it. And then he kicked me out. Kept the car, which was in his name. Kept the apartment, which was in his name. Kept everything, because nothing was in my name. I left with a suitcase and my student loans and exactly $300 in a savings account he didn't know about. Where did you go? A friend's couch, then a series of terrible apartments with terrible roommates. I tried to find another marketing job, but Marcus had connections, and somehow every interview went nowhere. Meanwhile, my student loans went into default, my credit cards maxed out, and eventually, I just collapsed. Filed for bankruptcy at 28. And now? Now I work at a bakery for $12 an hour plus tips. I live in a studio apartment with a hot plate and a mini fridge. I have exactly one credit card with a $200 limit that I use only for emergencies. And I wake up every single day convinced that this is all I'll ever be. Silence settled between them. The rain started up again, soft and steady, and Nora realized she was crying. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. Ethan's voice was fierce. Don't ever apologize for telling the truth. But this isn't first date material. This is runaway screaming material. Do I look like I'm screaming? She forced herself to meet his eyes. He was looking at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. You look like you're staying, she admitted. I told you I would. Why? The question came out raw, desperate. Why would you want someone this broken? Ethan reached out and wiped a tear from her cheek. His touch was gentle, almost reverent. Because I'm broken too, he said simply. And maybe broken people are better at putting each other back together. Nora didn't know who moved first. One moment they were sitting apart, separated by years of individual pain, and the next she was in his arms, her face buried against his shoulder, his hand stroking her hair as the rain fell around them. This is insane, she mumbled against his shirt. Completely insane. We barely know each other. And yet, they stayed like that for a long time. Two strangers who were no longer strangers. Two broken people holding each other together on a bench outside a restaurant they couldn't afford. The coffee shop Ethan had mentioned was called The Night Owl, and it was everything Bella Notte was not. Crammed into a narrow storefront on Belmont Street, it featured mismatched furniture, local art on exposed brick walls, and a barista with blue hair and an extensive tattoo sleeve who greeted Ethan by name. "Hey man, haven't seen you in weeks, the usual?" "Two of them, Mira, thanks." "Coming up." They found a couch in the corner, a sagging velvet monstrosity in a shade of purple that had probably been fashionable in 1975, and sank into it together. The springs groaned in protest. "This is more my speed," Nora admitted, looking around. "Is it terrible that I feel more comfortable here than at the fancy place?" "If it's terrible, then I'm terrible too." Ethan stretched his arm along the back of the couch, not quite around her shoulders, but close. "I only suggested Bella Notte because I wanted to impress you. This is where I actually go." "You come here a lot?" "When I can get a babysitter, which isn't often." He smiled. "The owner, Mira, she's actually a client. I helped her set up her inventory system last year. Now I get free coffee for life." "That's a pretty good deal." "Best deal I ever made." Mira brought over 2 enormous mugs of something that smelled like heaven, coffee with hints of vanilla and cinnamon, topped with a swirl of foam. "How special," she said, setting them down. "On the house, obviously." "You don't have to—" "Please. You saved me about 10 hours a week with that system. This is the least I can do." She winked at Nora. "You his girlfriend?" The question hung in the air. Ethan and Nora looked at each other. "We're figuring it out," Nora said finally. "Fair enough." Mira grinned. "Let me know if you need anything else." She disappeared back behind the counter, and Nora wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "So what happens now?" she asked. "I don't know." Ethan picked up his own mug. "What do you want to happen?" "I want to see you again." The words came out before she could second-guess them. "I know this night has been a disaster in about 12 different ways, but I want to see you again." "It hasn't been a disaster. My card got declined. I cried. You found out I'm bankrupt. In what universe is that not a disaster?" "In the universe where I got to actually know you." Ethan's voice softened. "In the universe where we stopped pretending and started being real." "That's not a disaster, Nora. That's a miracle." She stared at him. "You're serious." "I'm completely serious." He set down his mug and turned to face her fully. "I went into tonight expecting small talk, surface stuff. The kind of conversation where you learn someone's favorite color, but not what keeps them up at night. Instead, I got you, the real you, the you that's scared and struggling and absolutely beautiful. Why would I not want to see you again? Because I'm a mess? So am I. Because I don't know when things will get better? Neither do I. Because—" She stopped, struggling to articulate the fear that had governed her life for so long. "Because I don't know if I can be what you need. I don't know if I can be what anyone needs." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he reached out and took her hand. "Can I tell you what I need?" he asked. "Sure. I need someone who sees my kids as a bonus, not a burden. I need someone who understands that money is tight without making me feel like a failure. I need someone who can be honest with me, even when the truth is hard." He squeezed her fingers. "So far, you're 3 for 3. I haven't met your kids yet." "That's true," he smiled. "But the way your face lights up when I talk about them, the questions you ask, the way you remember details, I have a pretty good feeling." Nora's heart was beating too fast. This was moving too fast. Everything about tonight was too fast, too intense, too real. And yet she didn't want to slow down. "Okay," she said. "Okay, what?" "Okay, let's do this. Whatever this is, let's figure it out together." Ethan's smile could have lit up the entire coffee shop. "Yeah?" "Yeah, but I have conditions." "Name them." "No more fancy restaurants, not until we can both actually afford them." "Done." "No more pretending to have it together. If you're struggling, you tell me. If I'm struggling, I tell you." "Absolutely." "And if this gets too hard, if we can't make it work, we walk away like adults. No ghosting, no blame, just honesty." Ethan nodded slowly. "I can agree to all of that, but I want to add something." "What?" "If this works, if we actually figure out how to do this, we celebrate. Not with expensive dinners or fancy trips, just we acknowledge it. We recognize that we did something hard together." Nora felt tears prick her eyes again. Happy tears this time.
"Deal," she said. They shook on it, formal and ridiculous. And then Ethan leaned in and kissed her. It was a soft kiss, tentative and gentle, nothing like the passionate movie kisses she'd imagined. It tasted like coffee and vanilla and possibility. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. "I've been wanting to do that all night," he admitted. "What took you so long?" "Fear, terror, general emotional cowardice." Nora laughed. "At least you're honest." "That's the deal, right? Honesty?" "That's the deal." They sat together on that terrible purple couch until Mira gently reminded them the shop was closing. The rain had stopped by then, and the streets were quiet and clean. Ethan walked Nora to her car, an ancient Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door and a check engine light that had been on for 6 months. "This is me," she said unnecessarily. "Can I call you tomorrow?" "You'd better." He kissed her again, longer this time, more certain, and then watched as she pulled away from the curb and disappeared into the Portland night. Nora drove home in a daze. The evening had been nothing like she'd planned. It had been better, worse, more honest, more terrifying. She parked in front of her building, a converted house that had been split into 4 apartments, and sat in the car for a long moment, replaying everything. Her card had been declined. She'd cried in public. She'd told a man she barely knew her deepest shame, and he'd stayed. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Home safe. Tonight was the best worst first date I've ever had. Sleep well, beautiful." Nora smiled at the screen, typed back a response, and walked into her tiny apartment feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Mom. The next week passed in a blur of texts and phone calls and a growing certainty that whatever was happening between her and Ethan was real. They talked every night after his girls went to bed, long, wandering conversations that covered everything from their childhoods to their fears to the specific injustice of Portland's housing market. Nora learned that Ethan had grown up in Ohio, the son of a mechanic and a nurse, and had moved west after college for a job that no longer existed. She learned that his favorite movie was The Shawshank Redemption and that he cried every time he watched it. She learned that he made pancakes every Sunday morning for the twins and that they'd started calling it Pancake Palace Sunday. And he couldn't stop now, even if he wanted to. In return, she told him things she'd never told anyone, about her grandmother's slow decline from Alzheimer's and how it had broken her mother, about the years she'd spent trying to be perfect for Marcus and how it was never, ever enough, about the small rituals that kept her sane now, the morning walks before work, the Saturday farmers market, the library books she devoured because they were free. "I want you to meet them," Ethan said on Thursday night. Nora's heart stuttered. "The twins?" "Yeah, I know it's soon, but—" He paused. "I've never introduced them to anyone. Since the divorce, I mean. I've dated a little, but no one I wanted them to know." "And you want them to know me?" "I want them to know you." His voice was certain. "I want to see you in my actual life, not just in phone calls and coffee shops. I want to know if this thing we're building can exist in the real world." Nora closed her eyes. She knew what this meant. Meeting his children wasn't a casual step. It was an invitation into the center of his life. It was a test, whether he meant it that way or not. "When?" she asked. "Saturday? I was thinking we could do something low-key, maybe the park, then back to my place for dinner. Nothing fancy." "Are you sure they're ready?" "I'm sure I'm ready." He hesitated. "And I've talked to them about you, not everything, obviously. But they know I've met someone nice, someone I want them to meet." "What did they say?" "Lily asked if you were pretty. Brooke asked if you had a dog." Nora laughed. "What did you tell them?" "That you're very pretty and you don't have a dog, but maybe we could work on that." "Ethan, I can barely afford to feed myself. A dog is not in the budget." "I know. I'm just saying, Brooke is very persuasive. Be prepared." Saturday came faster than Nora expected. She changed outfits 3 times, settling finally on jeans and a soft sweater that made her feel comfortable rather than impressive. She left her hair down, put on minimal makeup, and reminded herself that she was meeting 6-year-olds, not diplomats. The park Ethan had chosen was a sprawling green space in southeast Portland, with a playground on one end and walking trails on the other. When Nora arrived,
She spotted them immediately. Ethan on a bench, watching two identical girls with brown pigtails race toward the slide. Her breath caught. They were beautiful. Not just cute, beautiful. With Ethan's warm eyes and an energy that seemed to spill out of them in every direction. Ethan saw her and stood up, his face breaking into a smile. Hey. Hey yourself. He pulled her into a hug, longer than necessary, like he'd been waiting all week for this moment. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. He turned toward the playground. Girls, come here. Two small tornadoes detached from the slide and came running. They skidded to a stop in front of Nora, identical faces tilted up with identical expressions of assessment. This is Nora, Ethan said. The friend I told you about. Hi, Nora managed. It's really nice to meet you both. You're pretty, one of the twins declared. Daddy said you were pretty, and he was right. That's Lily, Ethan said, his ears turning red. She's direct. Do you have a dog? The other twin demanded. Daddy said you don't have a dog, but maybe you could get one. I think you should get one. Dogs are the best. And that's Brooke. Nora knelt down to their level, her heart so full it hurt. I don't have a dog yet, she said seriously, but I'm open to suggestions. What kind of dog do you think I should get? Brooke's eyes lit up. A big one. A golden retriever. They're fluffy and nice, and they can catch frisbees. A golden retriever is a very good choice. Or a dinosaur dog, Lily added. If those existed, but they don't. I checked. I appreciate that you did the research. The twins exchanged a look, some kind of silent twin communication that Nora couldn't decode. Then Brooke nodded. She's okay, she announced. Can she push us on the swings? Only if she wants to, Ethan said. Nora stood up, meeting his eyes over the twins' heads. He looked nervous, hopeful, vulnerable. I'd love to push you on the swings, she said. The afternoon unfolded like something out of a dream. The girls were demanding and delightful, pulling Nora from the swings to the slide to the sandbox with an energy that left her breathless. Ethan watched from the sidelines, his expression soft, stepping in only when the twins started bickering over whose turn it was on the spinning thing. By the time they headed back to his apartment, Nora's legs ached and her sweater was covered in playground dust, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd been this happy. Ethan's apartment was small. A two-bedroom in an older building with mismatched furniture and toys scattered across every surface. But it was warm, lived in. The walls were covered with the twins' artwork, and there was a growth chart by the kitchen door with their names and heights marked in different colored pens. It's not much, Ethan said, watching her take it in. But it's home. It's perfect. The evening dissolved into controlled chaos. Nora helped Ethan make dinner, spaghetti with jarred sauce, nothing fancy, while the twins helped by setting the table with more enthusiasm than accuracy. They ate together at a table that wobbled slightly, and Lily told Nora about the book she was reading, and Brooke explained in great detail why hamsters were actually superior to dogs, even though she still wanted a dog. After dinner, there were baths and pajamas, and a prolonged negotiation about bedtime that Nora watched with something like awe. Ethan handled it all with patience and humor, never raising his voice, somehow convincing two overtired 6-year-olds that sleep was actually a good idea. One story, he said firmly, and then lights out. Can Nora read it? Lily asked. Ethan looked at Nora. Only if she wants to. I'd love to. She read them a chapter of Charlotte's Web, her voice growing hoarse as the twins fought to stay awake. By the time she finished, they were both asleep. Lily curled into her pillow, Brooke sprawled across the entire bed like she was staking territorial claims. Nora crept out of the room and found Ethan waiting in the hallway. You're amazing, he whispered. I read a chapter of a book. You made them love you in 4 hours. His voice was rough with emotion. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how careful they are around new people? They're incredible kids, Ethan. They are. He pulled her into his arms. And they already want to know when you're coming back. Already? Brooke made me promise to ask before you left. He smiled against her hair. So, when are you coming back? Nora thought about her empty apartment, her lonely dinners, the silence that had become her constant companion. Whenever you'll have me, she said. Ethan kissed her then, longer and deeper than their coffee shop kiss, and Nora let herself sink into it, into him, into the possibility of a life that included pancake sundaes and bedtime stories and two little girls who might, someday, call her something more than daddy's friend. It was terrifying. It was perfect. It was just the beginning. The weeks that followed Nora's first meeting with the twins unfolded like a slow-blooming flower, each day revealing new petals of possibility. She found herself woven into the fabric of Ethan's life in ways she hadn't anticipated. Sunday pancake mornings became Sunday pancake mornings with Nora, and bedtime stories became a negotiation over who got to pick the book while Nora read and Ethan handled the voices. It wasn't perfect. Nothing about their situation was perfect, but it was real. And for Nora, real was better than perfect had ever been. 3 weeks after that first park visit, she arrived at Ethan's apartment on a Saturday afternoon to find both twins vibrating with barely contained excitement. "We're making cookies," Brooke announced before Nora had even closed the door. "Daddy said you know how to make cookies because you work at a bakery, and that means you're basically a cookie expert."
I don't know if I'd say expert. Are you a cookie expert or not? Lily demanded, hands on her hips in a posture that was pure 6-year-old authority. Nora laughed. "Okay, yes, I'm a cookie expert." "I told you," Lily said to her sister. "Daddy doesn't lie about important things." Ethan appeared from the kitchen, an apron tied around his waist that read, "World's Okayest Chef," in faded letters. His hair was dusted with what looked like flour, and there was a smear of something on his cheek. "They've been planning this all week," he said, his expression somewhere between amused and apologetic. "I tried to warn you via text, but apparently my children have very strong opinions about cookie decorating." "Cookie decorating is serious business," Nora agreed solemnly. "What kind of cookies are we making?" "Sugar cookies," Brooke said, "with sprinkles and frosting and more sprinkles." "There's no such thing as too many sprinkles," Lily added. "I see you've both given this a lot of thought." The kitchen was already a disaster zone. Bowls and measuring cups scattered across every surface. A bag of flour that had clearly been opened with more enthusiasm than precision, and enough sprinkles to decorate approximately 400 cookies spread across the counter in small, colorful piles. "I tried to pre-measure everything," Ethan said, gesturing helplessly at the chaos. "But then Lily wanted to help with the flour, and Brooke found the sprinkles, and things kind of escalated. This is actually pretty controlled for a baking project with kids." Nora surveyed the damage with a practiced eye. "At the bakery, I once had to help clean up after a birthday party that involved 12 5-year-olds and a frosting piping station. This is nothing." "That sounds terrifying." "It was. I still have nightmares about buttercream." She rolled up her sleeves and took command of the kitchen with the confidence of someone who had spent years turning chaos into confections. Under her direction, the twins measured and poured and stirred, their earlier chaos transforming into something that almost resembled teamwork. "You have to mix it until the dough pulls away from the sides," Nora explained, guiding Lily's hand on the wooden spoon. "See how it's starting to come together? It's sticky." "That means it's working." Brooke leaned over the bowl, her nose practically touching the dough. "Can I taste it?" "Not yet. Raw eggs, remember?" "Daddy lets us taste the cookie dough sometimes." "Does he now?" Nora shot Ethan a look. He raised his hands in surrender. "It's a calculated risk. Very calculated. Almost scientific." "Uh-huh." They rolled out the dough together, the twins taking turns with the rolling pin while Nora showed them how to cut shapes, stars and hearts, and one ambitious attempt at a dinosaur that ended up looking more like a blob with legs. "It's an abstract dinosaur," Lily declared when Brooke criticized her cookie-cutting skills. "You just don't understand art." "I understand that dinosaurs have heads. Abstract dinosaurs don't need heads. That doesn't even make sense." "Girls," Ethan interrupted gently, "all cookies are welcome in this kitchen, even headless abstract dinosaurs." While the first batch baked, filling the apartment with the warm, sweet smell of sugar and vanilla, Nora showed the twins how to mix frosting. They made 3 colors, pink, blue, and an aggressive shade of green that Brooke insisted was essential, and set up a decorating station at the kitchen table. The first cookies came out of the oven golden and perfect,
and Nora felt a swell of satisfaction that had nothing to do with the baking and everything to do with the two small faces watching her with something like awe. "They're beautiful," Lily breathed. "They're not decorated yet. They're still beautiful." The decorating process was messy, chaotic, and utterly joyful. Sprinkles went everywhere, on the cookies, on the table, on the floor, in Brooke's hair, somehow inside Ethan's shirt. The frosting application was more enthusiastic than precise, resulting in cookies that looked like they'd been attacked by a particularly aggressive rainbow. "This one is for you," Brooke said, presenting Nora with a heart-shaped cookie covered in approximately half an inch of pink frosting and enough sprinkles to constitute a choking hazard. "It's perfect," Nora said, and meant it. "This one is for Daddy." Lily handed Ethan a star that had been frosted in all three colors at once, creating a muddy purple-green that should have been unappealing but somehow wasn't. "Because stars are special and you're special." Ethan's eyes went soft. "Thank you, sweetheart." "And this one," Brooke held up a blob-shaped cookie with careful reverence. "This one is for Mommy." The kitchen went quiet. Nora felt her stomach drop. Beside her, Ethan had gone completely still, his hand frozen halfway to the cookie sheet. "For Mommy?" he repeated carefully. "Yeah. I know she's not here, but maybe we could send it to her, or keep it for when she visits?" Brooke's voice was matter-of-fact, the way children are when they haven't yet learned that some topics are landmines. "She used to make cookies with us, before she left. Remember, Lily?" Lily nodded slowly. "I remember. She made the ones with the chocolate chips." "These are better," Brooke declared, "because Nora helped, and Nora knows what she's doing." Nora didn't know what to say, didn't know what to do. She looked at Ethan, desperate for guidance, and found him staring at the cookie in his daughter's hands with an expression she couldn't read. "That's very thoughtful, Brooke," Ethan said finally, his voice carefully neutral. "Why don't we put that one in a special bag? We can decide what to do with it later." "Okay." Brooke seemed satisfied with this answer and moved on to decorating another cookie, the momentary gravity already forgotten. But Nora saw the tension in Ethan's shoulders, saw the way his jaw tightened as he found a small plastic bag and carefully placed the mommy cookie inside, setting it on the counter like it might bite him. The rest of the afternoon passed normally enough. More cookies, more sprinkles, an extensive cleanup operation that required multiple paper towels and a vacuum cleaner. The twins eventually crashed on the couch, exhausted from the sugar high, and fell asleep watching a movie about a princess and a dragon. It wasn't until they were alone in the kitchen, washing the last of the bowls, that Ethan finally spoke. "I'm sorry about that," he said quietly. "The mommy cookie thing. I should have warned you that might happen. You don't need to apologize. Rachel, my ex, she's not exactly a consistent presence." He scrubbed at a bowl that was already clean, his movements mechanical. "She calls maybe once a month, sends presents on birthdays and Christmas that are always expensive and always wrong. The girls have this idea of her that doesn't really match reality, and I don't know how to fix it without hurting them." "What's the reality?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment. "The reality is that she left because she didn't want to be a mother anymore. She said that, those exact words. I don't want to be a mother anymore, Ethan. I want my life back." His voice cracked slightly. "Like they were just a phase she went through. Like 3 years of being their mom was something she could just stop doing. That's awful. What's awful is that she's never told them the truth. She lets them think she left because of work, because she had to, because sometimes grown-ups make choices that are complicated, and I won't be the one who destroys the image they have of her, even if that image is a lie." Nora set down the dish towel and moved closer to him. "You're a good father, Ethan. I'm a father who's lying to his children. You're a father who's protecting them from a truth they're not ready for." She put her hand on his arm. "There's a difference." He finally looked at her, and she saw the exhaustion in his eyes. The weight of 3 years spent holding everything together while the person who was supposed to help hold it with him walked away. "Do you know what the worst part is?" he asked. "What?" "Some days I'm grateful she left. Some days I think the girls are better off without her, and then I feel guilty for thinking that, because what kind of person is glad that his children's mother abandoned them?" "A person who's done the math." Nora's voice was firm, A person who knows that a half-present, resentful parent is worse than an absent one. A person who's watched his daughters thrive despite everything. Ethan stared at her. How do you do that? Do what? Make everything sound so clear, so simple. It's not simple. Nothing about any of this is simple. She reached up and touched his cheek, the same cheek that still had a faint smear of flour from their baking adventure. But sometimes the right answer is obvious, even when it's hard. You're doing the best you can for those girls. That's not nothing, Ethan. That's everything. He kissed her then, sudden and fierce, like he was trying to say something words couldn't capture. When he pulled back, his eyes were damp. I don't deserve you, he said. Stop saying that. It's true. It's not. And even if it was, I'm not going anywhere. She held his gaze. You're stuck with me, Ethan Reed. You and your messy kitchen, and your cookie-obsessed children, and your complicated ex-wife situation. All of it. All of it? All of it. In the living room, one of the twins stirred and mumbled something about sprinkles. Ethan smiled, the tension finally leaving his shoulders. Want to stay for dinner? He asked. I'd love to. They ordered pizza because neither of them had the energy to cook, and they ate it on the couch with the sleeping twins between them. And Nora thought that this messy, imperfect, beautiful chaos was exactly what she'd been searching for without knowing it. The mommy cookie stayed on the counter, untouched, until Nora left that night. She didn't ask what Ethan planned to do with it. Some questions didn't need answers. The next few weeks brought a rhythm to their relationship, a pattern of ordinary moments that somehow added up to something extraordinary. Nora spent more and more time at Ethan's apartment, her presence becoming as natural as the toys scattered across the floor and the crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator. She learned the girls' routines. Lily needed exactly 3 stories before bed, or she wouldn't sleep, and Brooke required her stuffed elephant positioned at a specific angle, or she'd wake up crying. She learned which breakfast foods were acceptable: pancakes always, eggs sometimes, oatmeal never under any circumstances, and which TV shows were allowed during the week versus the weekend. She also learned the shape of Ethan's stress. It started small, canceled coffee dates because a client needed something, late-night phone calls cut short because he had to catch up on work. Then it grew. She'd arrive at the apartment to find him hunched over his laptop, dark circles under his eyes, barely registering her presence until she physically sat between him and the screen. Ethan, it's 8 o'clock. The girls are asleep. I just need to finish this proposal. Morrison Industries is looking for a new inventory system, and if I can land this contract, when's the last time you slept more than 4 hours? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. You can't keep doing this to yourself. I don't have a choice. His voice was flat, mechanical. You know the situation, Nora. I'm 3 months behind on the business loan payments. The credit cards are maxed. If I don't land this contract, I don't know how I'm going to make rent next month. The words hit her like ice water. She knew things were tight. They'd been honest about that from the beginning. But hearing it laid out so starkly made it real in a way it hadn't been before. How bad is it? She asked quietly. Bad. He rubbed his eyes. I lost 2 more clients last week. The same story as before. They found cheaper options, bigger companies that can undercut my prices because they have volume. I'm down to 38 clients, and at least 6 of those are on the fence about renewing. What about the school district contract you mentioned? Still pending. They've been reviewing proposals for 2 months. At this point, I don't know if they're even going to make a decision. Nora felt the familiar helplessness rising in her chest, the sensation of watching someone drown and not being able to swim. She knew about financial desperation. She knew about lying awake at night calculating and recalculating, trying to make numbers work that simply wouldn't. But she couldn't fix this. She couldn't write a check or call in a favor or do anything except sit here and watch the man she loved slowly unravel. What can I do? She asked. Nothing. There's nothing anyone can do. He closed the laptop with more force than necessary. I shouldn't have told you. You've got your own problems. You don't need to carry mine too. That's not how this works. How what works? Us. This. Whatever we're building. She moved closer to him, took his hands in hers. You told me on our first date that maybe broken people are better at putting each other back together. Remember? You can't say that and then shut me out when things get hard. I'm not shutting you out. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need honesty. She squeezed his hands. Tell me the truth, Ethan. All of it. How bad is it really? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. If I don't land a major contract in the next 60 days, I'm going to have to close the business. And if I close the business, I lose everything. The apartment, the car, the ability to provide for my kids. His voice broke. I've been trying so hard, Nora. For 3 years, I've been trying so hard, and it's still not enough. She pulled him into her arms and held him while he shook, his face pressed against her shoulder, years of suppressed terror finally finding an outlet. She didn't say anything, didn't offer platitudes or promises she couldn't keep. She just held him, the way she wished someone had held her during the darkest nights of her own financial collapse. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were red, but his breathing was steady. I'm sorry, he said. Don't be. I didn't mean to dump all of that on you. You didn't dump anything. You told me the truth. That's what we promised each other. She wiped a tear from his cheek. We'll figure this out together. How? I don't know yet, but we will. The words felt hollow even as she said them, but sometimes hollow words were all you had to offer. Sometimes the best you could do was stand next to someone in the darkness and promise not to leave. That night, after Ethan fell into an exhausted sleep on the couch, Nora sat at his kitchen table and looked at the mommy cookie still sitting in its plastic bag on the counter. It had been there for almost 2 weeks now, untouched, a small sugary reminder of all the complicated ways love could fail. She thought about Rachel, the woman she'd never met but had come to know through fragments and silences. The woman who'd left 2 perfect little girls and a good man and never looked back. The woman who sent expensive gifts instead of herself. And then she thought about herself, about the life she'd been living before Ethan, about the walls she'd built and the fear she'd nursed, and the way she'd convinced herself that she didn't deserve anything better. She wasn't Rachel. She would never be Rachel. But she also wasn't sure she could be what Ethan and the girls needed. Not really. Not fully. Because what they needed was stability, security, a partner who could help carry the weight instead of adding to it. And what was she? A bakery employee with a bankruptcy on her record and $63 to her name until payday. The thought spiraled into darker places, the familiar voice of self-doubt that Marcus had planted, and she'd never quite managed to uproot. You're not enough. You'll never be enough. Why would anyone choose you? She was still sitting there when Ethan found her an hour later, her coffee cold, her eyes staring at nothing. Hey. He slid into the chair across from her. What's wrong? Nothing. I'm fine. Nora. The way he said her name, soft and knowing, cracked something open in her chest. I'm scared, she admitted. Of what? Of not being enough. The words came out raw, unfiltered. You're going through all of this, the business, the stress, the worry about the girls, and I can't help. I can't do anything. I'm just another person you have to take care of. That's not true. Isn't it? What do I bring to this relationship, Ethan? Really? I can't contribute financially. I can't solve your problems. I can barely keep my own life together. Her voice cracked. When things get hard, really hard, what am I going to be except dead weight? Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he reached across the table and took her hands. Do you know what you brought to my life the day your card got declined? Humiliation? Hope. His eyes were intense, unwavering. Hope, Nora. For 3 years, I've been alone with this. The stress, the fear, the constant feeling of drowning. I couldn't talk to anyone about it because I was too ashamed. And then there you were, sitting in a fancy restaurant counting crumpled bills, and I realized I wasn't the only one struggling. I wasn't the only one pretending. That's not... Let me finish. He squeezed her hands. You asked what you bring to this relationship. You bring presence. You bring honesty. You bring someone who sees me, the real me, not the version I perform for everyone else. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how much that matters? But I can't fix anything. I don't need you to fix anything. I need you to be here, to remind me that I'm not alone, to hold my hand when I'm falling apart and tell me we'll figure it out. even if neither of us knows how. He leaned forward. That's what you bring, Nora. That's what you've brought since the first night. And it's worth more than any amount of money. Nora felt tears spilling down her cheeks. I don't know how to believe that. Then let me believe it for both of us. Until you can. She came around the table and climbed into his lap, burying her face against his neck, and they held each other in the dim light of the kitchen while the mommy cookie watched from the counter and the city hummed quietly outside. They didn't solve anything that night. They didn't come up with a plan or find a magical solution to their combined financial disasters. But something shifted between them. Some wall came down, some bridge got built. They were in this together now, for better or worse. The following week brought an unexpected development. Nora was finishing her shift at the bakery, piping roses onto a wedding cake that was due for pickup in 2 hours, when her manager appeared at her elbow. Nora, can I see you in the back for a minute? Her stomach dropped. In her experience, can I see you in the back never preceded good news. She set down the piping bag and followed Maria to the small office behind the kitchen, her mind already calculating how long she could survive on unemployment if she was being let go. But Maria wasn't frowning, she was smiling. Relax, she said, seeing Nora's expression. You're not in trouble. The opposite, actually. The opposite? The owner called this morning. You know we've been struggling to find a lead decorator since Anna left? Nora nodded. Anna had been the bakery's head decorator for 8 years before moving to Seattle to be closer to family. They'd been operating with a skeleton crew ever since. Well, the owner reviewed the work you've been doing, and she's impressed. Very impressed. Maria's smile widened. She wants to offer you the position, lead decorator. It comes with a raise, an extra $4 an hour, plus a percentage of custom cake orders. Nora stared at her. You're serious? Completely serious. You'd be managing the decorating team, handling the specialty orders, working directly with clients on custom designs. It's more responsibility, but it's also more money. And honestly, Nora, you've earned it. Your work is exceptional. An extra $4 an hour, plus commission on custom cakes. Nora did the math quickly in her head. It would mean an extra $600 or $700 a month, maybe more during wedding season. It wasn't a fortune. It wouldn't solve all her problems. But it was breathing room. It was possibility. Yes, she said, before she could talk herself out of it. Yes, I'll take it. I was hoping you'd say that. Maria pulled her into an unexpected hug. You deserve this, Nora. You've worked so hard. That evening, Nora practically floated to Ethan's apartment. The twins were at a friend's house for a play date, which meant she had him to herself for a few precious hours, and she had news to share. You're glowing, Ethan said when he opened the door. Either you won the lottery or something really good happened. Something really good happened. She told him everything, the promotion, the raise, the terrifying and wonderful reality of finally moving forward instead of treading water. Ethan listened with growing excitement, his face lighting up in a way she hadn't seen in weeks. Nora, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you. It's not that much. I mean, compared to what you're dealing with. Stop. He pulled her close. Stop comparing. This is your win. Let yourself have it. It just feels strange. Being happy about my thing when your thing is so hard. My thing being hard doesn't mean your thing can't be good. He kissed her forehead. We're allowed to have good things, even when other things are bad. That's how life works. When did you get so wise? About 30 seconds ago. I'm improvising. They celebrated with takeout Thai food and a bottle of wine that cost $12 and tasted like victory. They talked about the future, not in the big, sweeping way of people making promises they couldn't keep, but in the small, practical way of people starting to believe that maybe there would be a future to plan for. If the school district contract comes through, Ethan said, swirling the last of his wine, I might actually be able to breathe. It's not going to make me rich, but it would stabilize things. Give me room to grow. When will you know? They said end of the month, so 2 more weeks of waiting and hoping and trying not to lose my mind. 2 weeks isn't that long. 2 weeks is an eternity when you're checking your bank account every morning. I know. She reached across the table and took his hand. I know exactly what that feels like. He turned her hand over, tracing the lines of her palm with his finger. You know what I keep thinking about? What? That night at Bella Notte. When your card got declined and I thought for sure you were going to run. He looked up at her. If you had run, if you'd made some excuse and left, we wouldn't be here right now. None of this would have happened. I almost did run, she admitted. I was so humiliated I wanted to disappear. What stopped you? Nora thought about it. You. The way you looked at me. Like my failure didn't change anything. Like you still wanted to know me, even after you'd seen the worst. It wasn't the worst. It was real. There's a difference. I didn't know that then. Do you know it now? She smiled. I'm starting to. They finished the wine and moved to the couch, tangled together in the comfortable intimacy of two people who had stopped pretending. The apartment was quiet, the girls still at their playdate, and Nora allowed herself to imagine what this life could look like. Movie nights on this couch, Sunday mornings in this kitchen, years of bedtime stories and first days of school, and all the small, precious moments that made up a family. It was terrifying, wanting something this badly. But for the first time in a long time, she wasn't going to let the fear win. The twins came home around 7, bursting through the door with the manic energy of children who had consumed too much sugar and not enough supervision. Brooke launched herself at Nora immediately. Nora, guess what? Emma has a hamster and it's named Sir Fluffington, and it ran on its wheel for like 1,000,000 hours. 1,000,000 hours? That's impressive. It was so fast, Brooke demonstrated by running in circles around the living room. Like this, but smaller and furrier. Lily hung back, more reserved, watching Nora with an expression that was difficult to read. Did you have fun too, Lily? Nora asked. Yeah, it was okay. She hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course. Lily glanced at her father, then back at Nora. Are you going to be our new mom? The question hit Nora like a freight train. She heard Ethan's sharp intake of breath, saw Brooke freeze mid-spin, felt the entire room hold its collective breath. What makes you ask that? Nora managed. Because you're here all the time, and Daddy smiles more when you're around, and you help make dinner and you read us stories, and Lily's voice grew smaller. And our real mom doesn't do any of those things. The silence that followed was deafening. Nora looked at Ethan, desperate for help, but he seemed as frozen as she was. This wasn't a question either of them had been prepared for. They'd been so focused on surviving day to day that they hadn't thought about what the girls were seeing, what conclusions they were drawing. Come sit with me, Nora said finally, patting the couch beside her. Lily approached slowly, climbing onto the cushion with the careful movements of a child who wasn't sure if she'd done something wrong. Brooke abandoned her hamster impression and joined them, sensing the gravity of the moment, even if she didn't fully understand it. Your mom, your real mom, is always going to be your mom, Nora began carefully. That doesn't change because I'm here. She's part of you, and she loves you in her own way, even if she can't be here to show it. But she doesn't visit, Lily said. She barely even calls. I know, and I know that hurts. It's okay to feel hurt about that. Nora took a breath. But here's the thing about families. They can grow. They can change. Having me in your life doesn't mean you lose your mom. It means you might have more people who love you. Does that make sense? So you're not going to be our mom? I'm going to be me. Someone who cares about you and your sister very much. Someone who wants to be here for the important stuff. Whatever that looks like, we'll figure it out together. You, me, your dad, Brooke. As a team. Lily considered this. That sounds okay? Yeah? Yeah. A small smile crept across her face. Can we still call you Nora? I would love it if you still called me Nora. Okay, good. Lily hopped off this couch like the entire conversation hadn't just rearranged something fundamental in all of their hearts. Can we have ice cream? Brooke and I had a lot of sugar at Emma's house, but I bet we could fit more. Ethan laughed, the sound breaking the tension. Nice try. How about a bath in bed instead? That's literally the opposite of ice cream, Daddy. I know, life is full of disappointments. The rest of the evening followed the familiar rhythm of bedtime routines, baths that somehow resulted in more water on the floor than in the tub, negotiations over pajama choices, the careful ritual of stories and songs and tucking in. Through it all, Nora felt something new settling into her chest. Not quite peace, but something close to it. Something like belonging. After the girls were finally asleep, she found Ethan in the kitchen, staring at the mommy cookie that still sat on the counter. "I need to throw this away," he said quietly. "It's been almost a month. It's probably stale by now." "Probably. But I can't." He picked up the plastic bag, turning it over in his hands. "It feels like throwing away part of them. Part of their hope that she might, I don't know, come back. Be different. She's not coming back. I know." He set the cookie down again. "But they don't. Not really. They're still waiting for her to show up and be the mom they need. And one day they're going to stop waiting. And I don't know if that's going to break them or free them." Nora moved to stand beside him. "What Lily asked me tonight about being their new mom, that scared you, didn't it?" "Terrified me." He turned to face her. "Not because I don't want it, because I want it too much. And I don't know if that's fair to you." "Fair to me? You didn't sign up for this, Nora. You signed up for a first date at an Italian restaurant. Instead, you got a broke single dad with 2 kids who are already attaching to you, an ex-wife who might show up at any moment and complicate everything, and a business that might fail in 2 weeks. He shook his head. "How is any of that fair?" "Life isn't fair. We both know that better than anyone." She reached up and turned his face toward her. "I didn't sign up for any of it, but I'm choosing it. Every day, I'm choosing this, choosing you, choosing them. That's not about fair, it's about love." The word hung between them, heavier than either had intended. "You love me?" Ethan asked quietly. Nora realized what she'd said, realized she couldn't take it back, realized she didn't want to. "Yeah," she said. "I think I do." "You think?" I know I love you, Ethan Reed, all of you. The stress and the mess and the children and the terrible purple couch at the coffee shop, all of it." He kissed her then, long and deep, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise and a prayer all at once. "I love you too," he whispered against her lips. "I've been wanting to say it for weeks. I just didn't want to scare you off. I'm not easily scared off. You should know that by now. I'm starting to." They stood in the kitchen, holding each other, while the mommy cookie watched from the counter and the twins dreamed in their beds, and somewhere across the city, a woman who had walked away from this life probably wasn't thinking about any of them at all. But Nora was here. Nora was choosing to stay. And sometimes that was enough. The next morning, Nora woke up in Ethan's bed to the sound of small feet thundering down the hallway. The door burst open, and 2 pajama-clad projectiles launched themselves onto the mattress. "Pancake Palace Sunday!" Brooke shouted, bouncing on the bed with zero regard for the adults trying to sleep. "Wake up! Wake up! Wake up!" "It's not Sunday," Ethan groaned, pulling a pillow over his head. "It's Saturday." "Then Pancake Palace Saturday! We can start a new tradition." Lily climbed over Nora to reach her father, poking him in the arm. "Daddy! Daddy! Daddy! We're hungry." "You're always hungry. That's because we're growing. You said growing takes a lot of energy. Pancakes have energy." "That's not entirely how nutrition works." "Pancakes," Brooke chanted. "Pancakes, pancakes, pancakes." Nora laughed, pulling herself upright. "I'll help make pancakes." Both girls cheered, and Ethan finally emerged from beneath his pillow, hair standing up in 12 different directions, looking at Nora like she'd just offered to perform a miracle. "You're encouraging them," he said. "I'm embracing the chaos." Same thing. They made pancakes together, all 4 of them crowded into the small kitchen, measuring and mixing and making a mess that would take twice as long to clean up as it did to create. Brooke insisted on chocolate chips in hers. Lily wanted blueberries, and Ethan somehow ended up with batter in his eyebrow that nobody mentioned until it had dried into a crusty patch. "Family photo," Nora said, holding up her phone. Everyone smile. They squeezed together, Ethan with his batter eyebrow, the girls with syrup on their chins, Nora with her hair a tangled mess, and Nora snapped the picture. It was blurry. It was imperfect. It was absolutely beautiful. "Can I see?" Lily asked. Nora showed her the screen. "We look happy," Lily said, almost surprised. "That's because we are happy," Brooke declared with the absolute confidence of a 6-year-old who had never learned to doubt good things. "We're a happy family. Nora looked at Ethan over the twins' heads. He was watching her with an expression that made her chest ache. Love and gratitude and fear and hope all tangled together. She smiled at him. He smiled back. And in that moment, surrounded by chaos and syrup, and two little girls who had already claimed her heart, Nora Blake allowed herself to believe that maybe this was what she'd been searching for all along. Not perfection, not stability, not someone who could fix her problems or pay her bills or make everything easy. Just this. Just them. Just the messy, beautiful truth of being loved exactly as she was. The next 2 weeks crawled by in a haze of anxiety and anticipation. Every time Ethan's phone rang, both of them jumped. Every email notification sent a spike of adrenaline through his system. The school district was supposed to make their decision by the end of the month, and each day that passed without news felt like another turn of a screw that was already too tight. Nora threw herself into her new role at the bakery, trying to be a distraction for both of them. Her first custom cake order came in, a 3-tier wedding cake with hand-piped lace details and sugar flowers that took her 14 hours to complete. When the bride cried upon seeing it, Nora felt a surge of pride so strong it nearly knocked her over. This was what she was meant to do. This was where she belonged. But every evening, she returned to Ethan's apartment to find him a little more strained, a little more frayed around the edges. He tried to hide it from the girls, putting on a smile when they burst through the door, making dad jokes that didn't quite land, reading bedtime stories in a voice that was just slightly too bright. The twins weren't fooled. "Daddy's sad," Lily confided to Nora one night while they waited for their bath to fill. "He thinks we don't notice, but we do. Your daddy is dealing with some grown-up stuff right now. It's not anything you need to worry about." "Is it about money?" Nora hesitated. "What makes you ask that?" "Because he told us we couldn't go to gymnastics anymore. And he's been cooking a lot more instead of ordering pizza. And he keeps looking at his phone like it's going to bite him." 6 years old and already so perceptive. Nora's heart ached for her. "Your daddy works very hard to take care of you and your sister," she said carefully. "Sometimes that's stressful, but you know what helps him feel better?" "What?" "You, Brooke. Being with his family." She smoothed Lily's hair back. "You don't have to do anything special. Just being here, being you, that's what helps him most." Lily considered this. "Nora?" "Yeah?" "I'm glad you're here too. You help him feel better, I can tell." The words wrapped around Nora's heart and squeezed. "I'm glad I'm here too, sweetheart." The call came on a Thursday afternoon. Nora was at the bakery, elbow deep in buttercream, when her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. 3 words. "Call me. Important." Her hands were shaking as she wiped them clean and ducked into the back room. The phone barely rang once before he answered. "I got it." His voice was breathless, disbelieving. "Nora, I got it. The school district contract. They called 10 minutes ago. I got it." The relief that flooded through her was so intense she had to grab the counter to stay upright. "You got it," she repeated. "I got it. A 3-year contract to manage inventory systems for every school in the district. 32 schools, Nora. 32 schools worth of reliable, recurring revenue." He laughed, a wild, almost hysterical sound. "I'm not going to lose everything. I'm not going to have to close. The girls get to stay in the apartment. We get to keep going." Nora felt tears spilling down her cheeks. "Ethan, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you." "That's not true." "It is true. These past few months, having you here, having someone who believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself, that's the only reason I didn't give up." His voice cracked. "You saved me, Nora. You saved all of us. You saved yourself. I just held your hand while you did it." "Same thing." They stayed on the phone for another 10 minutes, talking over each other, laughing and crying and making plans for a celebration that neither of them could actually afford, but both of them desperately needed. "Nothing fancy," Nora said. "Remember our rule." "Nothing fancy? Just the 4 of us. Maybe Chinese food and a movie." "That sounds perfect." "You sound perfect." "You're delirious from relief." "Maybe. Probably. I don't care." She could hear the smile in his voice. "I love you, Nora Blake. I love you too, Ethan Reed." That night, they celebrated with lo mein and fortune cookies, sprawled across the living room floor while the twins staged an elaborate puppet show using socks they'd stolen from Ethan's drawer. And then the brave knight, that's this sock, defeated the evil dragon, that's this other sock, and everyone lived happily ever after, Brooke narrated, smashing the socks together with more enthusiasm than finesse. That's not how you defeat a dragon, Lily protested. You need a sword. The knight has the invisible sword. That's cheating. It's creative. Nora leaned against Ethan, his arm around her shoulders, and watched the girls bicker about proper dragon-slaying protocol. The apartment was still small, still cluttered, still filled with the evidence of a life lived on a budget, but it didn't feel desperate anymore. It felt like home. "What are you thinking?" Ethan asked quietly. "That I'm happy." She tilted her head to look at him. "Is that allowed?" "It's definitely allowed." He kissed her temple. "It's encouraged, actually." "Good, because I plan to be happy for a while." "How long is a while?" Nora smiled. "As long as you'll have me." The weeks following Ethan's contract victory felt like waking up from a fever dream. The constant hum of financial anxiety that had become background noise in both their lives began to quiet, replaced by something Nora had almost forgotten existed: space to breathe. It wasn't that everything was suddenly easy. The debt didn't disappear, the bills didn't stop coming, and Nora's bank account still required careful management. But for the first time in longer than she could remember, there was margin, a little extra at the end of the month, room to plan beyond the next paycheck. She moved some of her things into Ethan's apartment gradually, without either of them making a formal announcement about it. First a toothbrush, then some clothes in a drawer he cleared for her, then her favorite coffee mug that somehow migrated from her studio to his kitchen. The twins noticed but didn't comment, accepting her increasing presence with the easy adaptability of children who had already decided she belonged. On a rainy Saturday morning in mid-October, Nora woke up to find Lily standing beside the bed, clutching a piece of paper against her chest. "Nora," she whispered loudly, "are you awake?" "I am now." Nora pushed herself up on her elbow, careful not to disturb Ethan, who was still dead to the world beside her. "What's up, sweetheart?" "I made you something." Lily held out the paper with the careful reverence of a child presenting a masterpiece. "For your birthday." Nora's breath caught. Her birthday was in 3 days, and she hadn't mentioned it to anyone. She'd stopped celebrating years ago, during the Marcus era, when her birthday had become just another day to be reminded of everything she lacked. "How did you know it was my birthday?" "Daddy told us. He said we should make you something special because you probably haven't had a special birthday in a long time." Nora took the paper and unfolded it carefully. It was a drawing, crayons on construction paper, depicting 4 stick figures standing in front of a house. 2 tall figures and 2 small ones, all holding hands, with a yellow sun beaming down and the word family scrawled across the top in wobbly letters. "That's you and Daddy and me and Brooke," Lily explained, pointing to each figure. "I drew us as a family because that's what we are now, right?" The tears came before Nora could stop them. "Right," she managed. "That's exactly what we are." "Why are you crying? Is it a bad drawing?" "No, honey, it's the best drawing I've ever seen." Nora pulled Lily into a hug. "I'm crying because I'm happy. Sometimes people cry when they're really, really happy. That's weird." "It is weird, but it's also true." Ethan stirred beside them, rolling over with a groan. "What time is it?" "Time for Nora's birthday present," Lily announced. "I already gave her mine. Brooke is finishing hers in our room." "She's doing what now?" Before Ethan could fully wake up, Brooke came bursting through the door with another piece of paper, this one covered in glitter that shed onto the carpet with every step. "Happy birthday, Nora," she shouted at maximum volume. "I made you a card. It has a unicorn on it, because unicorns are magic and you're magic." The card did indeed feature a unicorn, though it looked more like a horse that had encountered an unfortunate explosion in a glitter factory. Nora accepted it with the same gravity she'd given Lily's drawing. "This is beautiful, Brooke. Thank you. There's a poem inside. I wrote it myself." Nora opened the card and read aloud. "Roses are red, violets are blue, Nora's nice, and she makes good cookies too." "It rhymes," Brooke said proudly.
It does. It's a perfect poem.
Ethan had managed to sit up by now, rubbing sleep from his eyes but smiling at the chaos unfolding around him. I told them your birthday was coming up. They've been planning this for a week. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. He reached over and took her hand. You deserve to be celebrated, Nora, especially by the people who love you. The words landed soft and warm in her chest. The people who love you, this man and these children and this messy, imperfect life they were building together. So what are we doing for my birthday? She asked, wiping her eyes. That's a surprise, Lily said mysteriously. A big surprise, Brooke added. Daddy said we can't tell you or it ruins the surprise. Can you give me a hint? No hints. That's cheating, Ethan laughed. You heard them. No hints. The birthday surprise, when it arrived 3 days later, turned out to be exactly the kind of celebration Nora would have chosen for herself if she'd been brave enough to ask. No fancy restaurant, no expensive gifts, no pressure to perform gratitude for things she didn't need. Instead, Ethan took her to the same park where she'd first met the twins. They had a picnic on the grass, sandwiches and fruit and cookies that Nora had secretly recognized as coming from her own bakery, slightly burned around the edges in a way that suggested Ethan had attempted to make them himself first. I tried, he admitted when she raised an eyebrow at the cookies. 3 batches, 3 disasters. Eventually, I just drove to the bakery and begged Maria to help me. You tried to make me cookies from scratch? From scratch. I even bought special sprinkles. He pulled out a small bag of rainbow sprinkles from his pocket. I figured you could use them on the real cookies since mine were inedible. Nora laughed and kissed him, right there on the picnic blanket, while the twins made exaggerated gagging noises in the background. Gross, Brooke declared. Can we go play on the swings now? Yes, you can go play on the swings. The girls raced off, leaving Nora and Ethan alone in the fading afternoon light. The sky was that particular shade of October blue that only appeared for a few weeks each year, and the trees were starting to turn, scattering red and gold leaves across the grass. I have something else for you, Ethan said. Not from the girls. From me. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Nora's heart stopped. Ethan, it's not what you think. He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant, a simple heart with 3 tiny stones embedded in it. 1 stone for each of them, 1 for you, 1 for me. I know it's not much. I know you deserve something better. But I wanted you to have something you could wear, something that reminded you every day that you're part of this family. Nora touched the pendant with trembling fingers. The stones caught the light, throwing tiny rainbows across her skin. It's not a ring, Ethan continued, his voice careful. I know we're not there yet. We've still got so much to figure out, but I wanted you to know that when I think about the future, when I imagine where we're going to be in 5 years, 10 years, you're in every version of it. You and me and the girls. Together. Ethan. Is that okay? I know it's a lot. I know we said we'd take things slow. Put it on me. What? Put it on me. She turned around, lifting her hair away from her neck. Please. She felt his hands, warm and slightly shaky, as he fastened the clasp. The pendant settled against her collarbone, light and precious, and when she turned back to face him, she was crying again. I love it, she said. I love you. Yeah? Yeah? He kissed her, longer this time, deeper, and when they finally broke apart, the twins were standing at the edge of the picnic blanket with identical expressions of disgust. You're doing it again, Lily complained. Doing what? The kissing thing, it's weird. Get used to it, Ethan said, pulling Nora close. There's going to be a lot more kissing in this family. Ugh. Brooke threw herself dramatically onto the blanket. Being in a family is so embarrassing. But she was smiling. They all were. The weeks after Nora's birthday settled into a comfortable rhythm. She spent most nights at Ethan's apartment now, her studio serving more as a storage space than a home. The commute to the bakery was shorter from his place anyway, and waking up to the chaos of breakfast with the twins had become the best part of her day. November brought cooler weather and the beginning of the holiday rush at the bakery. Nora found herself working longer hours, taking on more custom orders, building a reputation as the decorator to call when you wanted something special. Her commission checks grew larger, and she started putting money aside for the first time since her bankruptcy. Not much, just a few $100s here and there, but enough to feel like progress. Ethan's school district contract was keeping him busy too. The implementation phase meant long days of meetings and troubleshooting, but it also meant steady income and a growing sense of stability that showed in the way he held himself. The tension in his shoulders was easing. The dark circles under his eyes were fading. He was sleeping better, eating better, living better. They still worried about money. Old habits died hard, but they worried together. Sunday nights became planning sessions, spreading bills across the kitchen table and figuring out priorities. Which debt to pay down first? How much to save for emergencies? When they could start thinking about moving to a bigger apartment. We could wait until spring, Nora suggested one Sunday, studying the numbers they'd written down. Give ourselves a few more months to save. Then look for a 3-bedroom, something with more space for the girls. A 3-bedroom. Ethan looked at her. That sounds pretty permanent. Is that a problem? No, not even a little. He smiled. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. We've been on the same page since my card got declined, Ethan. This isn't new. I know, but sometimes I still can't believe it. Can't believe you chose this, chose us. I chose you because you're worth choosing. She reached across the table and took his hand. And I'd choose you again tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day after that. Even when the bills pile up? Even then. Even when brook tracks glitter through the entire apartment? Even then. Even when… Ethan. She squeezed his hand. I'm not going anywhere. Stop looking for reasons I might leave. He was quiet for a moment, then he nodded. Old habits. I know, I have them too. She gestured at the spreadsheet they'd created. Why do you think I still check my bank account 3 times a day? Some fears don't go away just because the situation changes. So what do we do about it? We keep choosing each other, every day. We prove to ourselves that this is real by waking up and doing it again. She smiled. Eventually, maybe the fears will get smaller, or at least quieter. I like the sound of that. Me too. The week before Thanksgiving, everything changed. Nora was at the apartment alone, the girls were at school, and Ethan was in meetings all day, when the doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment she hesitated. This wasn't her apartment, not officially. What if it was a neighbor who didn't know her? What if it was someone looking for Ethan? She opened the door anyway. The woman standing on the other side was tall, blonde, and dressed in the kind of casual elegance that screamed expensive without trying. She had Lily's eyes and Brooke's smile, and Nora knew immediately who she was. Oh! The woman blinked, clearly surprised to find a stranger answering the door. I'm looking for Ethan. Is he here? He's at work. Can I help you with something? And you are? Nora, I'm his… She paused, suddenly unsure what word to use. Girlfriend seemed too casual. Partner felt too formal. I'm Nora, she said again, as if that explained everything. I'm Rachel. The woman extended her hand. The ex-wife. Nora shook it, feeling like she was touching a ghost. This woman, this tall, polished, beautiful woman, had walked away from Ethan, had walked away from Lily and Brooke, had left behind everything Nora had come to treasure. The girls aren't home from school yet, Nora said, her voice carefully neutral. They should be here in about an hour. I know. I looked up the school schedule. Rachel smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I was hoping to talk to Ethan first, actually. Work some things out before I see them. Work what things out? Just logistics. I'm going to be in Portland for Thanksgiving. I thought I might spend some time with the girls, if that's possible. Nora felt something cold settle in her stomach. Thanksgiving. The holiday they'd been planning for weeks. Their first as a family. Ethan had already bought a turkey. The girls had been working on hand-traced turkey decorations to put on the table. They'd been so excited, so sure that this Thanksgiving would be different from the lonely ones that came before. And now Rachel was here, wanting to insert herself into the picture. You should talk to Ethan, Nora said. This isn't my decision to make. No, I suppose it isn't. Rachel's eyes traveled over Nora with a calculating gaze that made her skin prickle. How long have you two been together? A few months. And you're already living here? I spend a lot of time here. The girls… Rachel's smile sharpened.
Yes, I imagine they've gotten quite attached to you. Children do that, you know. They latch onto anyone who shows them attention. The words were casual, almost friendly, but they landed like a slap. Nora felt her defenses rising. The girls are wonderful, she said carefully. I'm very lucky to be part of their lives. For now, Rachel checked her watch. Well, I suppose I'll come back when Ethan's home. Tell him I stopped by, will you? And that I'll be at the Heathman through the weekend. She turned and walked away without waiting for a response, her heels clicking on the concrete with perfect rhythm. Nora stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching her go, her heart pounding against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Rachel was back. After 3 years of occasional phone calls and expensive gifts, Rachel was actually back. And Nora had no idea what that meant for any of them. When Ethan came home that evening, Nora told him everything: the surprise visit, the calculated comments, the announcement about Thanksgiving. He listened in silence, his face growing more tense with every word. By the time she finished, he was pacing the length of the small kitchen. I can't believe she just showed up, he said. No warning, no phone call, just appeared on our doorstep like nothing happened. She seemed pretty determined to see the girls. Oh, I'm sure she is. Rachel is always determined when she wants something. He stopped pacing and braced his hands against the counter. The question is what she actually wants. What do you mean? Rachel doesn't do anything without a reason. She didn't drive all the way to Portland and book a hotel room just to eat turkey with her kids. There's something else going on. There always is. Nora moved to stand beside him. What do you think she wants? I don't know. That's what scares me. He turned to face her. She walked away, Nora. She looked at our daughters and decided she didn't want to be their mother anymore. And now she's back, talking about Thanksgiving like she has the right to be part of their holidays. Maybe she's changed. People don't change that much. Not about things like this. Some people do. Not Rachel. His voice was bitter. Rachel changes her circumstances, not herself. When things got hard with us, she left. When motherhood didn't match her expectations, she left. And when this visit doesn't go the way she wants it to, she'll leave again. The only difference is that this time, the girls are old enough to really feel it. Nora didn't know what to say. She'd only spent 5 minutes with Rachel, but she'd felt it too. That sense that everything was calculated, that every smile and comment served some purpose she couldn't see. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know. He rubbed his eyes. I can't stop her from seeing them. She's their mother. She has rights, legally speaking. But I can be there when it happens. Make sure she doesn't make promises she won't keep. Do you want me to be there too? He hesitated. I don't know if that's a good idea. She might see it as a challenge, a threat. A threat? You're everything she's not, Nora. You show up, you stay, you choose them every single day. His voice softened. She's going to see that, and she's not going to like it. I can handle Rachel. I know you can. I just don't want you to have to. The doorbell rang again, and they both froze. That's probably her, Ethan said. She said she was coming back. Do you want me to stay? He took a breath. Yeah, I do, if you're willing. Always. They walked to the door together. Rachel was standing in the hallway, looking even more polished than she had that afternoon. She'd changed clothes, a cashmere sweater and dark jeans that probably cost more than Nora's entire wardrobe, and her smile was wider, warmer, as if she'd practiced it in a mirror. Ethan. She opened her arms as if expecting a hug. It's so good to see you. He didn't move. Rachel, Nora told me you stopped by. I hope that's okay. I probably should have called first. She lowered her arms, the rejection registering only briefly on her face. Can I come in? The girls are doing homework. I know. I just want to talk. 5 minutes. Ethan stepped aside, and Rachel entered the apartment. Nora watched her take in the space, the small living room, the cluttered bookshelf, the artwork taped to every available surface. Rachel's eyes lingered on a photo on the wall that Nora hadn't noticed before. Ethan and the twins at the park. Nora crouched beside them, all of them laughing at something off camera. I see things have changed, Rachel said. A lot has changed. Ethan kept his voice neutral. What do you want, Rachel? I want to see my daughters. You see them on FaceTime. For 10 minutes a month, if they're lucky. I know I haven't been consistent. Rachel had the grace to look uncomfortable. But I'm trying to do better. That's why I'm here. For how long? What? How long are you trying to do better? Until it gets inconvenient again? Until something more interesting comes along? Ethan's voice was rising despite his efforts to control it. You can't just show up after 3 years and expect everything to be fine, Rachel. They're not props. They're children. Our children. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you forgot. The silence that followed was thick with old wounds and unspoken accusations. Finally, Rachel spoke again, her voice softer. I know I made mistakes, Ethan. I know I hurt them. I hurt you too, but I'm trying to make it right. Isn't that worth something? It's worth something to me. I'm not sure what it's worth to them. Can I at least see them? Just for a few minutes? Ethan looked at Nora. She saw the conflict in his eyes, the protective father warring with the man who still believed in second chances. That's your call, she said quietly. I'll support whatever you decide. He turned back to Rachel. You can see them, but not alone. And if you make them any promises, you'd better be prepared to keep them. I understand. Do you? Yes, Ethan, I understand. He called the girls out of their room. They came slowly, cautiously, as if they sensed something different in the air. Lily appeared first, her book still clutched in her hand, followed by Brooke, who had marker stains on her fingers and glitter in her hair. When they saw Rachel, they both stopped. Mommy? Brooke's voice was small, uncertain. Is that really you? It's really me, baby. Rachel crouched down to their level, her smile trembling at the edges. I've missed you so much. Neither girl moved. They stood frozen, looking at their mother like she was a stranger, which in many ways she was. Are you staying? Lily asked finally. I'm staying for the weekend. I thought maybe we could do something fun together. What do you think? The girls exchanged a look, that silent twin communication that Nora had come to recognize, and then looked at their father. Can Nora come too? Brooke asked. The question hung in the air like a grenade. Rachel's smile flickered. I thought maybe it could just be us, family time. Nora is family, Lily said matter-of-factly. She lives here. I know, sweetheart, but if Nora can't come, we don't want to go. Nora felt her chest constrict. These girls, these fierce, loyal, beautiful girls, were choosing her, openly, publicly, in front of their own mother. Rachel's expression was impossible to read. I see. Rachel, Ethan's voice was gentle but firm. Maybe we should ease into this. Give them time to adjust. Adjust to what? I'm their mother. You're a woman who visits every couple of years. That's not the same thing. He didn't say it cruelly, but the truth of it filled the room. They need to trust you again before they can spend time with you alone. That takes time. How much time? However much they need. Rachel stood up slowly, her composure cracking around the edges. For a moment, Nora almost felt sorry for her. This woman who had walked away from her own children and was only now realizing what she'd lost. Fine, Rachel said. We'll do it your way. But I'm not giving up, Ethan. They're my daughters, too. No one's asking you to give up, just to be patient. She looked at Nora one last time, a long, measuring gaze that seemed to see straight through her. Take care of them, she said quietly. Until I can. Then she walked out the door, leaving behind a silence so heavy it was hard to breathe. Brooke burst into tears. I don't want her to go, she sobbed, throwing herself against Ethan's legs. But I don't want her to stay either. Why does everything have to be confusing? Lily didn't cry. She stood perfectly still, her book pressed against her chest like a shield, her face blank in a way that was somehow worse than tears. Come here, Nora said, opening her arms. To her surprise, it was Lily who came to her first, the cautious one, the one who always held back. She pressed herself against Nora's side and stood there, not crying, not speaking, just absorbing the comfort of being held. Brooke joined them a moment later, still sniffling, and then Ethan wrapped his arms around all of them, and they stood in the middle of the living room like survivors of a storm. Is she going to take us away? Brooke asked, her voice muffled against Nora's sweater. No, baby. No one is taking you anywhere. But she's our mom.
She's your mom. But your dad has custody. That means you stay here, with us, with your family. You're our family too, Lily said quietly. Not just her. That's right. Nora stroked her hair. Family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who chooses you every single day. Like you. Like me. They stayed tangled together until Brooke's stomach growled loud enough to break the tension. I'm hungry, she announced, pulling back with the resilience of childhood. Can we have mac and cheese? Mac and cheese it is, Ethan said. They moved to the kitchen, the routine of dinner preparation helping to restore some sense of normalcy. But the shadow of Rachel's visit lingered, coloring everything with uncertainty. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, Nora and Ethan sat together on the couch, neither speaking for a long time. She's going to come back, Nora said finally. She's not going to give up this easily. I know. What do? We do what we've always done. He pulled her closer. We stay together. We protect the girls. We don't let anyone, not Rachel, not anyone, break what we've built. What if she takes us to court? She won't. She doesn't want custody. She wants absolution. She wants to prove to herself that she didn't fail as a mother by swooping in and playing the hero. He shook his head. But she can't erase 3 years of absence with one weekend visit. The girls know that, even if they don't have the words for it yet. Lily said I was family. You are family. In front of Rachel. She chose me in front of Rachel. Yeah. Ethan's voice was rough with emotion. That meant something. It meant everything. They sat in silence, the weight of the day finally settling around them. Outside, the city hummed with its usual nighttime rhythms, traffic and sirens, and the distant sound of someone's music playing too loud. I love you, Nora said. I love you too. We're going to get through this, aren't we? We're going to get through everything. He kissed her forehead. Together. The word hung in the air, a promise and a prayer. Together. It was the only thing that had ever made sense. Thanksgiving arrived with the kind of gray, drizzly weather that made staying indoors feel like a blessing rather than a confinement. Rachel had called twice since her visit, each conversation brief and awkward, but she hadn't pushed for more time with the girls. Ethan suspected she was regrouping, planning her next move, but he refused to let it overshadow the holiday. They spent the morning in the kitchen, all 4 of them, in the kind of controlled chaos that had become their specialty. Ethan handled the turkey, or attempted to, consulting YouTube videos every 5 minutes with increasing desperation. Nora managed the side dishes, teaching the girls how to mash potatoes and measure ingredients for stuffing. By noon, the apartment smelled like sage and butter and home. This is the best Thanksgiving ever, Brooke declared, licking gravy off a wooden spoon. You say that every year, Lily pointed out, because every year gets better. Nora caught Ethan's eye across the crowded kitchen, and he smiled at her, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes and crinkled the corners. She's not wrong, he said. This is the best Thanksgiving ever. They ate at the small kitchen table, squeezed together so tightly their elbows kept bumping. The turkey was slightly dry, and the mashed potatoes had lumps, and the cranberry sauce came from a can because Nora had burned the homemade version, but none of that mattered. What mattered was that they were together. All 4 of them. A family. After dinner, while Ethan and the girls cleaned up the kitchen, a process that involved more water fights than actual cleaning, Nora slipped onto the small balcony and watched the rain fall on Portland. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from an unknown number. I see the way they look at you, like you're their mother. But you're not. You never will be. Nora's blood ran cold. Rachel, it had to be Rachel. She stared at the message for a long moment, her heart pounding. Then she deleted it and put her phone away. She wasn't going to let Rachel poison this day. This family. This life they were building together. Some battles weren't worth fighting. Some words weren't worth answering. She went back inside where Brooke was explaining to Ethan why dish soap bubbles were actually a form of art, and Lily was carefully arranging the leftover turkey in the refrigerator because organization matters, Daddy. Home, Nora thought. This is what home feels like. And no one, not Rachel, not her own fears, not anything, was going to take it away. The text messages didn't stop after Thanksgiving. They came at random times, early morning, late at night,
sometimes in the middle of the day when Nora was elbow deep in buttercream at the bakery. Always from blocked or unknown numbers, always with the same cutting precision that made it clear Rachel knew exactly which wounds to target. You're just a placeholder. When the girls are older, they'll understand. Enjoy it while it lasts. Nothing built on someone else's wreckage survives. He settled for you. You know that, right? You were convenient. Nora deleted each one without responding, but the words lingered like splinters under her skin. She didn't tell Ethan, didn't want to add more stress to his already full plate, but the messages were starting to erode something inside her. That old familiar voice, the one Marcus had planted years ago, was waking up again. You're not enough. You never were. Why would anyone choose you? December arrived with the kind of cold that seeped into bones and refused to leave. The bakery was busier than ever, holiday orders stacking up faster than Nora could fill them, and she found herself working 12-hour days just to keep pace. By the time she got home to Ethan's apartment each night, she was exhausted in a way that went beyond physical. You're working too hard, Ethan said one evening, watching her collapse onto the couch. You need to slow down. I can't. The orders will still be there tomorrow. You won't if you burn yourself out. He sat down beside her. What's really going on? Nothing. I'm just tired. Nora. He took her hand. We promised each other honesty, remember? No more pretending. She should have told him then. Should have pulled out her phone and shown him the messages and let him share the weight of what Rachel was doing. But the words stuck in her throat, held there by shame and fear and that terrible voice whispering that maybe Rachel was right. It's just the holidays, she said instead. They're always hard for me. Lots of memories I'd rather not deal with. It wasn't a lie, exactly. The holidays had been hard for years, first because of Marcus, then because of the loneliness that followed. But it wasn't the whole truth either. Ethan studied her face for a long moment, and she could see him deciding whether to push. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but if there's something else, anything, you can tell me. You know that, right? I know. Good. He kissed her forehead. Now come on. The girls made you a surprise, and they've been dying to show you all day. The surprise turned out to be a handmade advent calendar, constructed from toilet paper tubes and held together with alarming amounts of glitter glue. Each tube contained a small piece of paper with a December activity written in the girls' careful handwriting. Day 1 is hot chocolate and Christmas movies, Brooke explained, bouncing with excitement. Day 2 is making ornaments. Day 3 is decorating the tree, but we don't have a tree yet, so maybe we should get one soon? We'll get one this weekend, Ethan promised. Day 4 is caroling, but Lily says caroling is embarrassing. It is embarrassing, Lily confirmed. So maybe we can just sing in the living room instead. Brooke pointed to another tube. And day 24 is Christmas Eve, and we wrote something really special for that one, but you can't look until it's time. What's the special thing? It's a surprise. If we told you, it wouldn't be a surprise anymore. Nora felt tears prick her eyes, the good kind, the kind that came from being overwhelmed by love instead of pain. This is the most beautiful advent calendar I've ever seen, she said. Really? Lily looked skeptical. It's kind of lopsided. The best things in life are lopsided. Nora pulled both girls into a hug. Thank you. I love it. We love you too, Brooke said matter-of-factly. That's why we made it. The words wrapped around Nora's heart and squeezed. These girls, these fierce, creative, endlessly loving girls, had chosen her. Despite everything. Despite their mother's attempts to undermine what they were building. She just had to remember that, had to hold on to it when the messages came and the doubts crept in. The first week of December passed in a blur of hot chocolate, ornament making, and the great Christmas tree debate of their household. Brooke wanted a tree that touched the ceiling. Lily wanted one that was mathematically proportional to the room. Ethan wanted whatever was cheapest. In the end, they compromised on a 6-foot Douglas fir that shed needles everywhere but smelled like magic. It's perfect, Nora declared as they finished stringing the last of the lights. It's crooked, Lily observed. Perfectly crooked. She adjusted the star on top, which was listing slightly to the left. Just like us.
The tree decorating was followed by popcorn and a viewing of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the original animated version, which Ethan insisted was the only acceptable choice. By the time the Grinch's heart grew 3 sizes, both girls were asleep on the couch, their faces soft and peaceful in the glow of the Christmas lights. "This is everything I ever wanted," Ethan said quietly, his arm around Nora's shoulders. "Right here. This moment. Me too. I never thought I'd have this again. After Rachel left, after everything fell apart," he shook his head. "I was so sure I'd never trust anyone enough to let them in. What changed?" "You." He turned to face her. "You changed everything, Nora. You showed me that trust doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be small steps. It can be messy. It can be 2 people who are terrified of getting hurt choosing to be terrified together." "That's very poetic." "I've been working on it." He smiled. "I love you. You know that, right? Not because you're convenient, not because you help with the girls, not because of anything you do, just because you're you." The words hit her like a physical force, slamming directly into the wound Rachel's messages had been carving. "Not because you're convenient." He'd said it like it was nothing, like it was obvious, but it was exactly what she'd needed to hear, exactly what Rachel had been trying to make her doubt. "I love you too," she managed, her voice thick. "More than I know how to say. You don't have to say it, just stay. I'm not going anywhere." They sat together in the quiet, watching the lights twinkle on the lopsided tree, while the girls dreamed beside them and the world outside went on without them. It was perfect, absolutely perfect, which was, of course, when everything fell apart. The call came 3 days before Christmas. Nora was at the bakery putting the finishing touches on a 3-tier wedding cake when her phone buzzed with Ethan's name. "Hey, what's up?" "Rachel filed for partial custody." The words didn't compute at first. They just hung there, sounds without meaning, while Nora's brain tried to rearrange them into something that made sense. "What?" "I just got the papers. She's claiming that I've been alienating her from the girls, that I've been poisoning them against her." His voice was tight, controlled, but she could hear the fear beneath it. "She wants 50-50 custody, Nora. She wants them half the time." The phone nearly slipped from Nora's hand. She can't do that. She abandoned them. She hasn't been a real presence in their lives for 3 years. Apparently she can try. Her lawyer is good, expensive. She's claiming she's changed, that she's ready to be a mother again, that I've been keeping her away. That's a lie. I know it's a lie, but proving it is going to take time and money I don't have. Nora's mind raced. The school district contract had stabilized things, but they weren't wealthy. They weren't even comfortable. A custody battle with expensive lawyers could drain everything they'd worked so hard to build. What do we do? "I'm meeting with a family lawyer this afternoon. She's supposed to be good. A friend of Mira's from the coffee shop. But she's not cheap." He paused. "I don't know how I'm going to afford this, Nora. The retainer alone is $5,000. $5,000. More than either of them had in savings. More than they could easily scrape together. "We'll figure it out," she said automatically. "We always do." "What if we can't? What if she takes them?" His voice cracked. "I can't lose them, Nora. I can't." "You're not going to lose them. Rachel doesn't want custody. She wants to hurt you. She wants to punish you for moving on." "How do you know that?" Nora closed her eyes. She couldn't keep this secret anymore. Not now. Not when everything was at stake. "Because she's been texting me," she admitted, "for weeks. Blocked numbers, anonymous messages, telling me I'm a placeholder, that I'm not enough, that you settled for me." The silence on the other end was deafening. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was ashamed," her voice broke. "Because part of me believed her. Because the things she said sounded exactly like what Marcus used to say, and I couldn't let you see how much it was getting to me." "Nora, I know I should have told you. I broke our promise." "No." His voice was fierce. "She broke something, not you. She did this. She tried to get inside your head, tried to undermine what we have, and you survived it. You're still here." "I almost wasn't."
The confession felt like swallowing glass. Some nights, after the messages, I almost convinced myself that you'd be better off without me, that I was just adding to your problems. That's insane. I know, but the brain doesn't always listen to reason. She wiped her eyes with her free hand. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. Don't apologize. Just save those messages. All of them. If she's been harassing you, that's relevant to the custody case. It shows who she really is. Nora's heart sank. I deleted them. All of them. I didn't want to see them anymore. Can you retrieve them from your phone company? I don't know. Maybe. I'll try. Okay. Okay. She could hear him breathing, trying to steady himself. We're going to get through this. Whatever happens, we're going to get through it. Together? Always together. They hung up, and Nora stood in the bakery kitchen with frosting-covered hands and tears streaming down her face, feeling like the floor had just dropped out from under her. Rachel wasn't just trying to hurt Ethan anymore. She was trying to destroy everything, and Nora was going to have to fight back. The lawyer's name was Sandra Chen, and she was exactly the kind of person you wanted on your side in a battle. Sharp, focused, and completely unimpressed by Rachel's expensive legal team. She has a weak case, Sandra said, spreading the custody papers across her conference table. 3 years of minimal contact. No documented attempts to increase visitation. A pattern of expensive gifts instead of actual presence. She tapped a manicured nail against the paperwork. This is a guilt play, not a genuine custody bid. Then why is she doing it? Ethan asked. Could be several things. Maybe she's genuinely had a change of heart. It happens. Maybe she's got a new partner who wants kids and she's trying to prove she's mother material. Or maybe she's just trying to make your life miserable. Sandra looked at him directly. What's your read on her? Option 3, Nora said before Ethan could answer. Definitely option 3. Sandra raised an eyebrow. You're the girlfriend. I'm the person she's been harassing for the past month. Tell me more about that. Nora explained everything, the messages, their content, the psychological warfare that had been eating away at her confidence. Sandra listened without interrupting, her expression growing more intent with every detail. And you deleted all of them? I was trying to protect myself. I didn't realize they'd be evidence. Can you contact your phone carrier? Request records? I tried this morning. They said they might be able to retrieve some of them, but it could take weeks. Sandra nodded. Start that process immediately. In the meantime, if she contacts you again, and she will, don't delete anything. Screenshot it, save it, forward it to yourself. Everything. Do you think this will help the case? Ethan asked. I think it shows a pattern of behavior that's inconsistent with her claim of wanting a healthy relationship with her children. Harassment of your partner doesn't exactly scream responsible co-parent. Sandra gathered the papers into a neat stack. Here's what's going to happen. She'll push for mediation first. It's standard in custody cases. If we can show that her motives are suspect, we might be able to settle this without going to court. And if we can't settle, then we fight, and we win. Sandra smiled, but there was steel behind it. I don't lose custody cases, Mr. Reed, especially not to parents who abandoned their children for 3 years and suddenly want them back when it's convenient. They left Sandra's office with a plan and a $5,000 retainer that wiped out most of their emergency fund. Ethan was quiet on the drive home, his hands tight on the steering wheel. We're going to be okay, Nora said. I know. Do you? He glanced at her. I'm trying to. It's just, this is my worst nightmare. Everything I've been afraid of since Rachel left. And now it's happening. But you're not alone this time. That's the difference. Yeah. His grip on the wheel loosened slightly. Yeah, that's the difference. They picked up the girls from school and drove home through streets that were starting to sparkle with Christmas lights. The twins chattered about their day, a holiday party, in their classroom, a gift exchange where Lily had received a book and Brooke had received approximately 17 pounds of candy, and Nora and Ethan smiled and nodded and pretended everything was fine. They'd decided not to tell the girls about the custody filing. Not yet. Not until they knew more. There was no point in scaring them with something that might not materialize. But that night, after the girls were asleep,
Nora found Ethan sitting in the dark kitchen, staring at his phone. She texted me, he said without looking up. Rachel, asking if I got the papers. What did you say? Nothing yet. Sandra told me not to respond to anything without running it by her first. Nora slid into the chair across from him. What did she say exactly? He handed her the phone. The message was brief but devastating. I know this seems harsh, but it's the only way. You left me no choice when you replaced me with her. The girls deserve to know their real mother. I'm not going away, Ethan. Not this time. Replaced me with her. Nora felt the words like a blow. She really thinks this is about me. It's not about you. It's about her inability to accept that I moved on. He took the phone back. She can't stand that the girls have bonded with you. Can't stand that you're giving them what she never could. Or maybe she really does want them back. Maybe she's changed. Do you believe that? Nora thought about the messages, the calculated cruelty, the way Rachel had looked at her that day in the apartment, like she was an obstacle to be removed rather than a person to be acknowledged. No, she admitted, I don't. Neither do I. Ethan set the phone down. But we have to prove it. We have to show the court who she really is. How? I don't know yet, but I'm going to figure it out. He looked at her, his eyes blazing with determination. She's not taking my children, Nora. I don't care what it costs, what I have to do. She's not taking them. What about what it costs us? The money, the stress, Are you having second thoughts? The question stopped her cold. What? About this. About us. About staying. His voice was carefully neutral, but she could hear the fear beneath it. Because I would understand if you were. This isn't what you signed up for. A custody battle, a crazy ex-wife, the possibility of losing everything. Ethan, stop. I'm just saying, stop. She moved around the table and took his face in her hands. I'm not having second thoughts. I'm not running. I'm not going anywhere. Even if this gets worse, especially if this gets worse. She kissed him, hard and certain. You don't get to push me away because you're scared. That's not how this works. I'm not trying to push you away. You're giving me an exit. That's the same thing. She held his gaze. I don't want an exit, Ethan. I want you. I want the girls. I want this family, with all its mess and complications and terrifying ex-wives. I'm not leaving. Promise? Promise. He pulled her into his arms and held her like she was the only solid thing in a world that was spinning out of control. I love you, he whispered. I love you too, and we're going to get through this. How do you know? Because we have something Rachel doesn't. What's that? Each other. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped around each other in the dark kitchen while the Christmas lights on the tree blinked their steady rhythm, and somewhere across the city, Rachel plotted her next move. The mediation was scheduled for January 15th. The weeks leading up to it were a blur of preparation, gathering evidence, documenting every instance of Rachel's absence over the past 3 years, building a case that showed exactly who had been raising Lily and Brooke. Nora's phone records came through on January 2nd, and they were a goldmine. The carrier had managed to retrieve most of the deleted messages, complete with timestamps showing a systematic pattern of harassment that had escalated throughout November and December. This is exactly what we needed, Sandra said, reviewing the printouts. She started messaging you before she filed for custody. That shows premeditation. She wasn't trying to reunite with her children. She was trying to destabilize your relationship first. Will the mediator see it that way? If they have any sense, yes. But more importantly, this gives us leverage. If Rachel knows we have evidence of harassment, she might back down. The last thing she wants is for this to go public. What about the girls? Ethan asked. Will they have to testify? At mediation, probably not. But if this goes to court, Sandra paused. We might need to consider having them speak to a child psychologist, someone who can assess their preferences and well-being without putting them on the stand. They're 6 years old. They shouldn't have to be part of this at all. I know, but unfortunately, custody cases often involve the children in ways that feel wrong. We'll do everything we can to shield them. Christmas came and went in a haze of forced cheer and underlying tension. They celebrated the best they could, presents under the lopsided tree, hot chocolate and carols, the special Advent calendar activity that turned out to be tell each person in your family why you love them. I love you because you make the best pancakes, Brooke told Ethan. I love you because you always listen to me read, even when the book is boring, Lily told Nora. I love you because you're brave, Nora told the girls. Both of you, the bravest people I know. I love you, Ethan said, looking at all three of them, because you're my family, and nothing is ever going to change that. They rang in the new year together, watching fireworks from the apartment window while the girls counted down and shrieked with excitement. At midnight, Ethan kissed Nora while sparklers fizzled in the background and the twins complained about the kissing thing again. Happy New Year, he murmured against her lips. Happy New Year, she whispered back. It's going to be a good one. I can feel it. She wanted to believe it. She needed to believe it. But the mediation loomed ahead like a storm on the horizon, and nothing felt certain anymore. January 15th arrived cold and gray, the kind of Portland winter day that made everything feel muted and heavy. Nora dressed carefully, professional but not intimidating, confident but not aggressive, and met Ethan at Sandra's office at 9 a.m. Remember, Sandra said as they headed into the mediation center, let me do most of the talking. Only speak when directly addressed, and don't let Rachel bait you. She's going to try to provoke a reaction. Don't give her one. And if she brings up the messages, then we present our evidence and let it speak for itself. The mediation room was smaller than Nora expected. A conference table, neutral colors, a window overlooking a gray parking lot. Rachel was already there with her lawyer, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit who looked like he charged by the breath. Ethan, Rachel said, rising slightly, thank you for agreeing to this. I'm not sure I had a choice. There's always a choice. Her eyes slid to Nora. I see you brought your support person. Nora has every right to be here. She's part of the children's lives. That's exactly what we need to discuss. The mediator, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner, called the session to order and explained the process. Each side would present their perspective, and she would help them work toward an agreement that served the best interests of the children. Rachel went first. I made mistakes, she said, her voice carefully calibrated to convey remorse. I left when I shouldn't have. I wasn't there for my daughters when they needed me. But I've changed. I've spent the past year in therapy, working through my issues, understanding why I made the choices I made, and now I'm ready to be their mother again. What specifically has changed? The mediator asked. Everything. My priorities, my perspective, my understanding of what family means. Rachel's eyes glistened with what might have been genuine tears. I was young when I had the girls. I wasn't ready. I felt trapped, and I ran. But I'm not running anymore. I want to be part of their lives, a real part, not just phone calls and birthday cards. She was good, Nora had to admit. If she hadn't seen the messages, hadn't witnessed the calculated cruelty, she might have believed every word. Ethan's turn came next. I want what's best for Lily and Brooke, he said simply. I've always wanted that. When Rachel left, I stepped up. I put my entire life on hold to make sure they had stability, security, and love. And now they have all of those things, including a relationship with Nora, who has become a genuine parent figure in their lives. Is it your position that the children's mother should be excluded from their lives? The mediator asked. No. I've never tried to exclude Rachel. I've facilitated every phone call, every FaceTime, every holiday message. But I also won't pretend that 3 years of absence can be erased overnight. The girls need consistency. They need to know that the people in their lives are going to stay. And you don't believe Ms. Reed will stay? I believe she'll stay until something more interesting comes along. That's what her pattern has always been. Rachel's lawyer jumped in. Mr. Reed is speculating about my client's future behavior based on 3 years of evidence, Sandra interrupted smoothly. Evidence that includes minimal contact, no documented attempts to increase visitation, and most recently, a systematic harassment campaign directed at Mr. Reed's partner. The room went silent. Rachel's face froze. I don't know what you're talking about. Sandra opened her folder and spread the phone records across the table. We have documentation of over 40 messages sent from blocked numbers to Ms. Blake over a 6-week period. The content is consistent with an attempt to destabilize her relationship with Mr. Reed and the children. Those could be from anyone. The timing coincides exactly with your return to Portland. The language references specific details about Mr. Reed's household that only you would know. And the messages stopped immediately after we requested phone records, a decision that suggests someone realized their communications were traceable. Rachel's lawyer leaned over to confer with her in urgent whispers. The mediator studied the documents with growing concern. "Ms. Reed," she said finally, "is there anything you'd like to say about these messages?" Rachel's composure cracked, just for a moment. "I was upset. Seeing Ethan with someone else, seeing my daughters call another woman family. It was harder than I expected. I'm not proud of what I did, but it doesn't change the fact that I love my children and want to be in their lives. Loving your children and harassing the woman who's raising them are mutually exclusive behaviors," Sandra said. "The court will see it that way too, if this proceeds to trial." "That's enough," Rachel's lawyer interrupted. "My client is willing to discuss a compromise." And just like that, the tide turned. The compromise, hammered out over the next 3 hours, gave Rachel supervised visitation rights. 4 hours every other weekend with a third party present. She would attend family therapy with the girls, work toward building trust, and demonstrate consistent commitment before any additional custody modifications would be considered. It wasn't everything Ethan wanted, but it was far from the 50-50 split Rachel had demanded. "This is acceptable," Sandra said when they reviewed the final terms. "She has to earn expanded access. If she's serious about being a mother, she'll do the work. If she's not, she'll disappear again," Ethan finished. "Exactly. And this time, there will be documentation." They signed the papers. Rachel signed the papers. The mediator thanked everyone for their cooperation, and the session ended. In the hallway, Rachel caught up to them. "Ethan, wait!" He turned, his expression guarded. "What?" "I'm sorry for the messages, for all of it." She looked at Nora. "I was jealous. I saw what you were building with them, and I couldn't stand it. That's not an excuse, just an explanation." "You're right," Nora said. "It's not an excuse." "I know." Rachel took a shaky breath. "I'm going to do the work. The therapy, the visitation, all of it. Not because the court is making me, but because I want to know my daughters. I want to be part of their lives, even if it's just a small part." "Actions speak louder than words," Ethan said. "Show up, keep showing up. That's the only way this works." "I will." She walked away, and Nora watched her go with a strange mix of emotions, anger and pity, and something that might have been hope. "Do you believe her?" she asked. "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "But I believe in second chances, and third chances, and however many chances it takes for people to become who they're supposed to be. Even Rachel?" "Even Rachel." He took her hand. "Come on, let's go home." Home. The word had never sounded sweeter. They picked up the girls from school and took them out for ice cream, a celebration of sorts, though the twins didn't know exactly what they were celebrating. "Did something good happen?" Lily asked, studying her father's face. "Something good happen." "What?" "Just grown-up stuff. Nothing you need to worry about." "Is it about Mommy?" Brooke asked, her voice small. Ethan and Nora exchanged a look. "Your mommy is going to be visiting more often," Ethan said carefully. "She wants to spend time with you. How do you feel about that?" The twins were quiet for a moment, processing. "Will Nora still be there?" Lily asked finally. "Always." "Okay, then I guess it's okay." "Me too," Brooke agreed. "As long as nothing changes, as long as we're still a family." "We're still a family," Nora said. "That's never going to change." Brooke nodded, satisfied, and returned to her ice cream. But Lily lingered, watching Nora with those two perceptive eyes. "I'm glad you stayed," she said quietly. "Some people don't stay, but you did." Nora felt tears threatening again. "I'll always stay, sweetheart. I promise." "Okay." Lily smiled, a rare, full smile that transformed her serious face. "I believe you." They finished their ice cream and drove home through streets that were starting to thaw, the gray January giving way to something that almost looked like light. The custody battle wasn't over, Not really. Rachel would be part of their lives now, a complicated presence that would require navigation and patience and endless communication. But they'd survived the worst of it. They'd held on to each other when everything tried to tear them apart. And that, Nora realized, was what love really looked like. Not grand gestures or perfect moments, but the small daily choice to stay, to fight, to build something worth protecting. She reached across the car and took Ethan's hand. "I love you," she said. "I love you too. We're going to be okay. We're going to be better than okay." He squeezed her fingers. "We're going to be great." Spring arrived in Portland the way it always did, slowly at first, then all at once, the gray giving way to green in a matter of weeks. Cherry blossoms exploded along the streets, and the rain softened from the relentless winter downpour to something gentler, almost apologetic. 6 months had passed since the mediation, and against all odds, Rachel had kept her word. She showed up for every scheduled visitation. She sat through family therapy sessions without complaint. She learned the names of the girls' teachers, their favorite foods, the books Lily was devouring, and the increasingly elaborate art projects Brooke insisted on creating. She wasn't perfect. There were awkward moments, miscommunications, times when old patterns threatened to resurface. But she was present, consistently, reliably present. "I don't trust her completely," Ethan admitted one evening, watching through the window as Rachel helped the girls plant flowers in the small patch of dirt outside their apartment building. "But I trust that she's trying." "That's more than you could say a year ago." "A year ago, I couldn't say anything about her without wanting to break something." He turned away from the window. "Now I just feel tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe it won't drop this time. Maybe." He didn't sound convinced, but he didn't sound hopeless either. That was progress. The school district contract had led to others, smaller businesses that heard about Ethan's work through word of mouth, a referral network that grew slowly but steadily. He'd hired a third developer, moved into a proper office space, started thinking about the future in terms of growth rather than survival. Nora's career had blossomed too. The bakery had expanded, opening a second location across town, and she'd been promoted to head of the entire decorating department. Her custom cakes were becoming known throughout Portland, elaborate creations that people drove across the city to order, that showed up in wedding magazines and food blogs and Instagram feeds with thousands of followers. They weren't rich. They probably never would be. But they had enough. Enough to pay the bills, enough to put aside for emergencies, enough to start dreaming about things they'd never dared to dream before, like the house. It was a modest 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, with a yard big enough for the garden Lily wanted and the dog Brooke had never stopped requesting. The price was at the upper edge of what they could afford, but when Ethan walked through the front door for the first time, Nora saw something shift in his expression. "This is it," he said quietly. "This is home. We haven't even seen the bedrooms yet." I don't need to. I can feel it." He turned to look at her, and his eyes were bright. "Can you feel it?" She could. The house had good bones, as her grandmother used to say, solid and warm and waiting for a family to fill it with noise and laughter and life. "The girls would love it here," she said. "The girls would go absolutely feral here. There's a backyard, Nora, an actual backyard. Brooke will try to build a dinosaur habitat." "She absolutely will." They made an offer that afternoon. 3 weeks later, after inspections and negotiations and enough paperwork to make Nora's eyes cross, the house was theirs. Moving day fell on a Saturday in late April, the kind of perfect spring day that made Portland feel like the most beautiful city in the world. The twins helped by running through empty rooms and claiming various corners for elaborate plans that changed every 5 minutes. "This is where I'm going to read," Lily announced, standing in a sunny spot by the living room window. "Every day. Right here." "This is where I'm going to keep my dinosaur collection," Brooke declared, gesturing at an entire wall of her new bedroom. "I'm going to need more dinosaurs. You have 47 dinosaurs. That's not enough for a collection. That's barely a starter set." Nora left them to their planning and found Ethan in the backyard, standing in the middle of the overgrown grass, looking up at the sky. "Second thoughts?" she asked, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Third and fourth thoughts, actually." He covered her hands with his. But not the bad kind. The "I can't believe this is really happening" kind. It's really happening. I know. That's what's terrifying. He turned in her arms to face her. A year ago, I was convinced I was going to lose everything. The business, the apartment, maybe even the girls. And now you have a house with an actual backyard. And now I have everything. His voice roughened. Everything I ever wanted, Nora. A home. A family. You. You've always had me. I know, but now I get to keep you. He smiled, that crooked smile that still made her heart flip after all these months. Forever, if you'll let me. Something in his tone made her pause. Ethan, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. He reached into his pocket. I was going to wait until we were settled, until everything was perfect. But then I realized nothing is ever going to be perfect. We're always going to be figuring it out. And I don't want to wait anymore. He pulled out a small velvet box, and Nora's breath stopped. It's not a ring, he said quickly. Not exactly. I wanted to ask you something first. He opened the box. Inside was a simple band, silver with a single small diamond, clearly chosen with care on a budget that didn't allow for extravagance. I want to marry you, Nora Blake, but I can't afford the ring you deserve. I can't afford the wedding you deserve. I can barely afford the mortgage on this house. His voice cracked. All I can offer you is this, me, the girls, this life we're building. It's not much, but it's everything I have. Nora stared at the ring, her vision blurring with tears. Ethan, you don't have to answer now. I know it's a lot. I know we've been through so much already, and maybe you need time to think about whether this is really what you want. Yes. He stopped. What? Yes. She was laughing and crying at the same time, her hands shaking as she reached for him. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to you. Yes to the girls. Yes to this ridiculous house with the overgrown yard. Yes to everything. Really? Ethan, I've been saying yes to you since the night my card got declined. Did you really think I was going to stop now? He kissed her, hard and desperate and full of relief, and she kissed him back with everything she had. They stood in the overgrown grass of their new backyard, wrapped around each other, while somewhere inside the house their daughters were probably destroying something and neither of them cared. I love you, he breathed against her lips. I love you too. We're getting married. We're getting married. The girls are going to lose their minds. As if on cue, Brooke's voice echoed from an upstairs window. What are you doing out there? Is something happening? Are we getting a dog? Nora laughed. I think we should tell them. I think you're right. They walked inside together, hands intertwined, and found the girls in the kitchen staring at them with identical expressions of suspicion. You were doing the kissing thing again, Lily said. In public. The backyard isn't public. It's our backyard now. It's still gross. Well, get used to it. Ethan crouched down to their level. Because I just asked Nora to marry me, and she said yes. The silence lasted approximately half a second. Then Brooke screamed, a high-pitched shriek of pure joy that probably registered on seismographs across the city, and launched herself at Nora with enough force to nearly knock her over. You're going to be our mom? For real? I'm going to be your stepmom. Yes. That's the same thing. That's better than the same thing. Brooke was bouncing now, her entire body vibrating with excitement. Lily, did you hear? Nora's going to be our mom. Lily hadn't moved. She stood perfectly still, her eyes fixed on Nora with an intensity that made Nora's heart ache. Lily, Ethan said gently, are you okay? You're really staying? Lily's voice was small, trembling. Forever? You're not going to leave like Mom. She didn't say it, but everyone heard it. Nora knelt down and took Lily's hands in hers. I'm really staying, forever, I promise. How do I know? You don't, not for certain. Nobody can know the future for certain. Nora squeezed her hands. But I can tell you this, I have spent my whole life looking for a place where I belong, a family, a home. And I found it here, with you and your sister and your dad. I'm not giving that up, not ever. Lily studied her face for a long moment, searching for something, doubt maybe, or hesitation. Whatever she found must have satisfied her because she finally smiled.
Okay, she said. I believe you. Then she hugged Nora too, and Brooke joined them. And then Ethan wrapped his arms around all three of them, and they stood in the kitchen of their new house, crying and laughing and holding on to each other like they'd never let go. This is the best day ever, Brooke declared, her voice muffled against Nora's sweater. It really is, Nora agreed. Can we get a dog now? We'll talk about it. That means yes. That means we'll talk about it. But she was smiling, and Ethan was smiling, and even Lily, serious, cautious Lily, was smiling. They were going to be okay. Better than okay. They were going to be a family. The wedding planning began almost immediately, though planning might have been too generous a word for what actually happened. Nora had no interest in a lavish ceremony. She dreamed of white dresses and flower arrangements once, back when Marcus was promising her a future that turned out to be a lie. Those dreams had curdled, and she found she didn't want them anymore. What she wanted was simple: Ethan, the girls, and a commitment that meant something. Courthouse, she said one evening, flipping through a bridal magazine that one of her coworkers had given her. Quick, easy, no fuss. You don't want a wedding. I want a marriage. The wedding is just the party that comes before it. Ethan looked relieved. I was worried you'd want something bigger, something I couldn't give you. I don't need big, I just need you. She tossed the magazine aside. Besides, do you really want to coordinate a venue and a caterer and a guest list while we're still unpacking boxes? Good point. They settled on a Saturday in June, a simple courthouse ceremony followed by a celebration in their new backyard. Nora's coworkers from the bakery offered to provide the cake, which she gratefully accepted after making them promise not to go overboard. Ethan's few close friends and the twins' grandparents, Ethan's parents, who were flying in from Ohio, would make up the tiny guest list. It was perfect, exactly what they needed. But 2 weeks before the ceremony, something unexpected happened. They were eating dinner, spaghetti, the girls' favorite, made from a recipe Nora's grandmother had passed down, when Lily set down her fork with unusual solemnity. I need to talk to you about something, she said. Ethan and Nora exchanged a look. Okay, Ethan said carefully. What's up? It's about the wedding, about Nora becoming our stepmom. Lily took a breath. I talked to Mommy about it during our visit last weekend. The air in the kitchen shifted. Rachel had been doing well, keeping her appointments, building a tentative relationship with the girls, but the topic of the wedding had been carefully avoided. Nobody wanted to poke that particular bear. What did she say? Nora asked. She said she was happy for Daddy, and for you. Lily paused, and then she gave me something. For the wedding. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside, when she opened it, was a ring. Not just any ring. A delicate gold band with a vintage setting, holding a small but perfectly clear diamond. It looked old, antique even, with the kind of craftsmanship that suggested it had been made in a different era. It was Grandma's ring, Lily explained. Mommy's mommy. Mommy said she kept it after Grandma died because she thought she'd give it to us someday. But she wants you to have it for the wedding. Nora's hand flew to her mouth. Lily, she said she knows she can't be the mom we need, but she wants to be part of our family anyway, even if it's a different part than she thought. Lily's voice was steady, but her eyes were wet. She said Grandma would have wanted Daddy to be happy, and that you make Daddy happy, so the ring should be yours. The kitchen was absolutely silent. Ethan looked like he'd been hit by a truck. His face had gone through about 17 different emotions in the span of 10 seconds, and now it had settled on something that looked like shock mixed with cautious hope. Rachel gave you this? He asked. She said it was important. She said... Lily hesitated. She said she's sorry. For all of it. And she knows sorry isn't enough, but she wanted to do something that mattered. Nora took the ring carefully, feeling its weight in her palm. Such a small thing to carry so much meaning. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Lily said. Just wear it, if you want to. Nora looked at Ethan. His eyes were glistening, and she knew hers were too. I would be honored to wear it, she said finally. It means more than I can explain. Brooke, who had been unusually quiet throughout this exchange, finally spoke up. Does this mean Mommy is okay? Like, really okay? I think it means she's trying, Ethan said slowly. Really trying, in a way she hasn't before. So we can still love her? Even though she left? Even though Nora is going to be our stepmom now? You can love as many people as your heart can hold, sweetheart. That's not a limited resource. Ethan reached out and smoothed Brooke's hair. Loving Nora doesn't mean you stop loving your mommy. They're different kinds of love. That's confusing. Love usually is. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, Nora sat on the back porch of their new house and turned the ring over and over in her hands. The diamond caught the moonlight, throwing tiny rainbows across her skin. Ethan came out with 2 cups of tea and settled beside her. "You're thinking loudly," he said. "I can hear it from inside." "I'm thinking about Rachel." "What about her?" "This ring, giving it to me through Lily, it's the first genuinely unselfish thing she's done since I've known her." Nora looked up at the stars. "Part of me is waiting for the catch, the angle, the way she's going to use this against us later." "And the other part?" "The other part thinks maybe people really can change. Maybe she's becoming who she was supposed to be all along." Nora sighed. "I don't know which part to believe." "You don't have to decide tonight." Ethan put his arm around her. "You don't have to decide ever, really. You can just let it be what it is." "What is it?" "A gift, a peace offering, a bridge someone is trying to build." He kissed her temple. "You can accept a gift without accepting the person who gave it. That's allowed." "When did you get so wise?" "I've been taking notes from this incredibly smart woman who keeps telling me that life doesn't have to be perfect to be good." Nora laughed. "She sounds like a handful." "She absolutely is, but I wouldn't have it any other way." They sat together in the quiet, watching the stars wheel overhead, and Nora let herself feel something she'd been afraid to feel for a very long time. Peace, real peace, the kind that came from knowing you were exactly where you were supposed to be. The wedding day dawned bright and warm, the kind of June morning that felt like a blessing. Nora woke up in their new bedroom, still cluttered with unpacked boxes, still not quite organized, and stared at the ceiling for a long moment, letting the reality sink in. Today she was getting married. Not to the man she'd thought she'd end up with, back when she was young and naive and believed love came with guarantees. Not in the wedding she'd once imagined, with the expensive dress and the perfect venue and all the trappings she'd been taught to want. Instead, she was marrying a single dad with 2 kids and a modest income and a complicated ex-wife. She was doing it in a courthouse, followed by a potluck in the backyard. She was wearing a simple white dress she'd found at a consignment shop, and she was going to be happier than she'd ever been in her life. Funny how that worked out. The courthouse ceremony was short and sweet. A judge who'd clearly performed hundreds of weddings spoke the standard words, but somehow they felt new when Ethan repeated them. Somehow, to have and to hold, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, meant something different when you'd already lived through the worse and the poorer together. The girls stood beside them as witnesses, Lily in a blue dress she'd picked out herself, Brooke in a purple one that didn't match at all because, she explained, matchy-matchy was boring. They held hands throughout the ceremony, their small faces solemn with the weight of the moment. When Ethan slipped the grandmother's ring onto Nora's finger, the ring Rachel had given through their daughter, the ring that represented so much more than metal and stone, Nora felt tears spilling down her cheeks. "I do," she said. "I really, really do." "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the judge said. "You may kiss the bride." Ethan kissed her while the girls cheered and the small crowd of family and friends applauded, and Nora thought, "This is it. This is what I've been waiting for my whole life. Not the wedding, not the ring, not any of the external markers of success and love. Just this. Being chosen by someone who knew exactly who she was, broke, scared, imperfect, and chose her anyway, every day, without hesitation. That was what love really meant. The backyard celebration was everything they'd wanted and nothing they'd planned for. Someone had strung fairy lights through the trees. Someone else had set up a playlist that alternated between oldies and whatever pop songs the twins were currently obsessed with. The cake, a magnificent 3-tier creation that Nora's colleagues had somehow kept secret from her,
was decorated with sugar flowers that made her eyes well up all over again. "This is too much," she protested to Maria, who was grinning like she'd pulled off a heist. "This is exactly enough. You're getting married, Nora. You get one of these days. Let us make it special." So she did. She let herself be celebrated, let herself be the center of attention, let herself believe for one afternoon that she deserved all of this. The twins took their roles as unofficial hostesses very seriously. Lily made sure everyone had drinks. Brooke made sure everyone knew that she was going to be a big sister now, even though technically nothing had changed except that Nora had a different last name. "Does this mean I call you Mom now?" Brooke asked at one point, her mouth full of cake. "You can call me whatever feels right. Mom, Nora, hey you, whatever works." "What about Mom, Nora? Like, so we know which mom we're talking about?" Nora felt her heart squeeze. "I'd like that a lot." "Okay, Mom, Nora it is." Brooke nodded decisively and went back to her cake. "Lily, I figured it out. She's Mom Nora now." "I heard," Lily called back. "We all heard. You're very loud." "I'm celebratory." Ethan appeared at Nora's side, slipping his arm around her waist. "Having fun, Mrs. Reed." "Mrs. Reed." She tested the name on her tongue. "That's going to take some getting used to." "We've got time. All the time in the world." They watched their daughters chase each other around the yard, shrieking with laughter, while their guests chatted and ate and celebrated this new chapter in their story. "Thank you," Ethan said quietly. "For what?" "For not running, that first night, when your card got declined. Every day since then when things got hard." He turned her to face him. "For choosing us. For staying." "I didn't stay because I'm noble, Ethan. I stayed because I couldn't imagine a life without you in it." "Same thing, maybe. Maybe." He kissed her, softer this time, slower, and she leaned into him, into this man who had become her partner, her person, her home. "Dad! Mom! Nora! We need you for pictures!" Brooke was waving frantically from across the yard. "Grandma says we have to take family pictures before the light is gone." "Family pictures," Nora repeated. "I'm in the family pictures." "You're in all the pictures from now on." Ethan took her hand. "Come on, wife. Let's go take some pictures with our daughters." The photographer, Ethan's mother, wielding an ancient camera with surprising expertise, arranged them in various configurations. Ethan and Nora alone. Ethan and Nora with the girls. The girls alone. Lily rolling her eyes at Brooke's increasingly ridiculous poses. The last shot of the evening was all four of them squished together on the old porch swing that had come with the house. Nobody was looking at the camera. Brooke was telling some kind of joke that made Lily groan. Ethan was laughing. Nora was watching them with an expression of such raw love that when she saw the photo later, it made her cry. "Perfect," Ethan's mother declared. "Absolutely perfect." It really was. Later that night, after the guests had left and the twins had crashed from sugar overload and exhaustion, Ethan and Nora sat together in their backyard, watching the fairy lights twinkle in the darkness. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up," Nora admitted. "Like this is all a dream, and I'm still in that studio apartment, still counting quarters for gas, still convinced I'll never have anything good." "It's not a dream." "I know, but sometimes I need to remind myself." She looked down at the ring on her finger, the grandmother's ring, now hers. "A year ago, I didn't believe people like me got happy endings. And now? Now I think maybe happy endings aren't about what you deserve. They're about what you're willing to build." She leaned against his shoulder. "We built this, Ethan, together, out of nothing." "Not nothing. We had each other. We had each other." She smiled. That turned out to be enough. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling into night. Somewhere, a dog barked. A car passed on the street. The ordinary music of ordinary life. "I want to tell you something," Ethan said finally. "Something I've been thinking about." "What?" "That night at Bellanote, the night your card got declined, I almost didn't say anything. About my own situation, I mean. I was so embarrassed, so sure you'd judge me, that I almost let you walk away thinking I had it all together." "What changed your mind?" "Your face." He turned to look at her. "The shame in your eyes." I recognized it because I felt it too. And I thought, if we're both pretending, what's the point? What are we protecting except our own pride? So you took a chance. I took a chance. And it was the best decision I ever made. Nora felt tears prick her eyes again. She'd cried more today than she had in the past year combined. I'm glad I didn't run, she said. I'm glad you didn't either. Even when things got hard. Especially when things got hard. That's when I knew you were serious. When I knew you were in this for real. She kissed him then, her husband, she could call him that now, and let herself feel the full weight of everything they'd survived. The declined card, the failed business, the absent ex-wife who became a complicated presence, the custody battle, the harassment, the fear and the doubt and the endless uncertainty. They'd made it through all of it, together. And now they had this, a house with an overgrown backyard, 2 daughters who called her mom Nora, a marriage built on honesty instead of pretense. It wasn't the life she'd imagined for herself. It was better. The following summer brought the dog Brooke had been requesting since approximately the dawn of time. He was a golden retriever mix from the shelter, young enough to be energetic and old enough to be housebroken. The girls named him Butterscotch, which was ridiculous, and Nora loved him immediately. We're officially that family now, Ethan said, watching Butterscotch chase the twins around the backyard.
The one with the kids and the dog and the white picket fence. We don't have a white picket fence, metaphorically. Fair enough. Rachel's visits had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Every other weekend, 4 hours gradually extended to full days as trust built on both sides. She never tried to undermine Nora's relationship with the girls again. Whatever transformation had begun with the grandmother's ring seemed to have stuck. She's different, Lily observed one afternoon, watching Rachel's car pull away. She's more real now. What do you mean? Before, it felt like she was always performing, like she was trying to be the mom she thought we wanted instead of just being herself. Lily shrugged. Now she's just her, it's better. I'm glad, Nora said, and she meant it. Ethan's business continued to grow, not explosively, but steadily. He hired 2 more employees, started turning down projects instead of scrambling for every opportunity. Built something sustainable instead of just survivable. Nora's bakery expanded again, and she found herself mentoring younger decorators, passing on the skills her grandmother had taught her so many years ago. The full-circle nature of it felt significant, like she was finally becoming the person she was supposed to be. On their first wedding anniversary, they went back to Bellanote. It was Ethan's idea, a surprise he'd been planning for months. He'd saved up enough for a proper dinner, no financial terror attached. This is where it started, he said as they settled into a corner table. Where I fell in love with you. You fell in love with me while my card was being declined? I fell in love with you while you were falling apart, while you were human and vulnerable and real. He reached across the table and took her hand. I'd been surrounded by people pretending to be perfect for so long. And then there you were, counting out crumpled bills like your life depended on it, and I thought, there she is. The person I've been waiting for. Nora squeezed his hand. You're going to make me cry into my expensive pasta. That's the goal. They ordered without checking prices, a luxury that still felt foreign, still made Nora's stomach do a little flip. The food was exactly as good as she remembered, maybe better now that she could actually enjoy it. I have something for you, Ethan said as dessert arrived. Another ring? Not a ring, something else. He pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. Open it. Inside was a piece of paper, official-looking, covered in legal language that took Nora a moment to parse. When she understood what she was reading, her breath stopped. Ethan, the girls asked me about it a few months ago. They wanted to know if you could adopt them officially. His voice was rough. I talked to Rachel. She agreed to relinquish her parental rights voluntarily. She said she wants you to be their real mom, not just their stepmom, their actual legal mother. Nora couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything except stare at the paper in her hands. The petition for adoption, already signed by Rachel, already notarized, just waiting for her signature. You don't have to decide now, Ethan said quickly. I know it's a lot. I know it changes things legally, financially. Yes. What?
Yes. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. Yes, I want to adopt them. I've wanted to since the first day Lily called me family, since Brooke asked if I could push her on the swings, since… She couldn't finish. Couldn't find words big enough for what she was feeling. Ethan came around the table and pulled her into his arms, right there in the middle of the restaurant, while the other diners pretended not to watch. I love you, he whispered. I love you too. We're going to be a family. A real, official, legal family. We were always a real family. This is just paperwork. Best paperwork I've ever signed. They finished dinner in a happy daze, then drove home to find the girls waiting up past their bedtime, their faces pressed against the window. Did she say yes? Brooke demanded the moment they walked through the door. Did she say yes? Did she say yes? Did she say yes? She said yes, Ethan confirmed. The explosion of joy that followed probably woke the neighbors. Butterscotch started barking, convinced something exciting was happening. The twins launched themselves at Nora with the force of twin hurricanes, nearly knocking her over. You're our real mom now, Brooke shouted. Really real, legal and everything. I was always your real mom, Nora said, holding them tight. The paperwork just makes it official. Official is important, Lily said, her voice muffled against Nora's shoulder. Now, nobody can ever take you away. Nobody was ever going to take me away, sweetheart. I know. But now it's guaranteed. They stood there, all four of them, plus one very confused dog, in the middle of their living room. The house was still a bit of a mess. It always would be, with 2 kids and a dog, and lives being lived at full volume. The bills were paid, but the savings account wasn't overflowing. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, its own small crises, its own ordinary struggles. But tonight, they were exactly where they belonged. A family. A real, messy, imperfect, beautiful family. And it had all started with a declined card and 2 people too tired to pretend anymore. The adoption was finalized in August, in the same courthouse where they'd gotten married. The judge smiled as she signed the papers. Congratulations, she said. You're officially a family. We were already a family, Brooke informed her. This is just making it legal. I stand corrected. They celebrated with ice cream and a trip to the park, the same park where Nora had first met the twins almost 2 years ago. The girls raced for the swings while Nora and Ethan settled on a bench, watching them. Remember when we sat here for the first time? Nora asked. I was so nervous, so sure I was going to mess everything up. I remember. You were great. I was terrified. Same thing sometimes. He took her hand. The bravest things are usually the scariest. She leaned against him, watching their daughters, pump their legs higher and higher, trying to touch the sky. No regrets? She asked. Not a single one. You? Nora thought about everything that had brought her to this moment. The bankruptcy, the loneliness, the terrible, wonderful night when her card got declined and her life changed forever. No regrets, she said. Not anymore. Good. Ethan kissed her temple. Because we've got a lot of life left to live. I want you enjoying it, not second-guessing it. I'll work on that. Take your time. We've got forever. Forever. The word used to terrify her. Now it felt like a promise. Hey, Brooke shouted from the swings. Mom. Nora. Dad. Watch this. She launched herself off the swing at the apex of its arc, flying through the air for one heart-stopping moment before landing in the sand with a triumphant whoop. I flew, she announced. Did you see? I actually flew. I saw, Nora called back. You were amazing. Try it, Lily. It's like being a bird. Birds don't land face first in sandboxes. That only happened once. Nora laughed, a full, real laugh, the kind that came from deep in her chest and spread through her whole body. This was her life now, sunshine and chaos and 2 little girls who thought they could fly. She couldn't imagine anything better. That night after the girls were finally asleep, a process that had taken 3 stories, 2 glasses of water, and 1 extended negotiation about whether dogs needed bedtime stories too, Nora sat at the kitchen table and wrote a letter. Not to anyone in particular, just to herself. To the woman she'd been a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. The woman who'd believed she didn't deserve happiness. Who'd convinced herself that love was something that happened to other people. She wrote about Ethan, about the girls, about the house and the dog and the bakery, about the wedding in the backyard and the grandmother's ring on her finger, about becoming a mother to two daughters who had chosen her as completely as she'd chosen them. And at the end, she wrote, "I thought I was broken beyond repair. I thought the best I could hope for was survival. I thought love required perfection, mine and everyone else's. I was wrong about all of it. Love doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It requires honesty. It requires showing up day after day, even when you're scared, especially when you're scared." The moment I thought ruined everything, the declined card, the humiliation, the exposure of every failure I'd been hiding, turned out to be the beginning of everything good. Because that's when I stopped pretending. That's when I let someone see the real me. And that's when I learned that the real me was worth loving all along. She folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer, next to her marriage certificate and the adoption papers and all the other documents that proved, officially and legally, that she belonged somewhere. Then she went upstairs, climbed into bed beside her husband, and fell asleep in the home they'd built together. Broke together. Honest together. Forever together. Just like they'd promised.